好了，今天大选夜啊，我们来看一看，大选现在的情况啊。我们等一会儿啊，现在有人点赞了，但是有谁来了？谁看到了先点赞，再进来看。很快就要开始了啊，现在是7点钟，7点钟准时开始。我这里电视里面那个电脑里面，我给你们看一下啊。这里是在，我得把这个开小一点啊。这个是在把它开小一点。怎么弄啊？不对，不是按这个。哦，有8个人了，谁来了？还没开始哈，还有很快几分钟吧。大家来的都聊一聊吧，听得见吗？有人听得见吗？那我先看一下，我能听得见吗？能听得见扣个1好吗？Hello， 刘帅你好，刘帅，还有谁来了？来了都点点赞啊！今天我们 BC 省大选夜啊！你好 ，Rachel 你好 ，Charlie 你好。那里那么多不干活的富人，你说会选谁？哎呀，我都希望怎么办呢？啊，谢谢，你们能听得见最好，也没有办法呀。我觉得 BC 真的是我们家门口都是橘黄色的旗子插着啊，我也不懂啊。而且6月份还看到他们好几家门口都挂着那个彩虹啊，所以大家都明白。在多伦多等你直播太不容易了啊，刘帅。对，多伦多时间差挺多的，因为今天是大选嘛，所以我们就我就早一点啊。孩子我把他安排在外面看电视啊，待会儿可能他们会来敲门啊。我跟他说了，万一有什么事要上厕所啊，要什么有什么事来敲门啊，爹地出来啊，叫他们不要直接进来。和谁？怎么还没开始啊？我来看看啊。他可能他那个下面聊天室好多人啊。今天我特地穿的蓝色啊，blue，因为我看那个上面聊天室上面写的 blue wave 啊，大家都是 blue wave。我看那个他现在的那个，我刚才看，我那个手机呢？在这。我刚才看那个一篇报道啊，一个小红书的，他说那个人呢没了。BC， 我前面看一个小红书的那个挺感人的啊，说今天大雨天啊，大雨天还有好多人都去选了啊，特别是年纪大的人。大雨天，SL man 你好，你好，大家都很关心大选啊，来的人都给姜饼哥点点赞啊，让更多的人能看得到啊。我看，前面我看有那个到哪里去了？好多人都在等直播啊。我来刷新一下，是不是我没刷新啊？是没有，还没有开始啊。Why did you guys vote for？ 下面开始吵架了啊，我估计。前面我看到说，到目前为止 NDP 还是领先啊，蓝色要翻盘挺难的。怎么说呢？谁我也搞不明白啊，谁还这怎么说？我也看不明白啊，谁还喜欢那个那么多毒品啊，包括那些房屋的那些政策啊，包括那些 有的没的那些什么牙医保险啊，我觉得牙医保险真的可能对特别穷的人有那么一些作用啊。Quintus 你好 ，Quintus， 对，但是是这么说啊，查理，富人可以不干活，会选 NDP， 但是怎么说呢？但是这富人毕竟是少数啊，对吧？你不能说这里富人哪里也不可能，社会上哪里也不可能富人比穷人多，要么富人拿钱让穷人去投票啊，这应该是不允许的啊。我发现我现在频道里经常有那个英语名字的那些 comments 啊，什么让人去做什么，我看到我就删掉。那些用英语的啊，又来两个。他说你的视频一如既往的好啊，但是我的那个什么 Save PayPal 里面有什么东西啊，都是 USDT 啊，就都让我把它都删掉。这个我估计都是骗人的。现在骗子太多了，隐形的富豪，怎么还没有开始啊？我他妈等了那么久了，他这个是有没有啊？说9点开始啊？我看看啊，这下面的评论倒是一直在放，我给你们看这个吧。这个待会可能就来了。搞个直播也挺不容易的，还得几方合作。23号目前看是50个基点，可能性特别大。50个基点的特别性挺大的啊，因为它现在的我这里有个频道 BC Election 2 Minutes， 这个是 Global News， 但这个我来找找看啊。Global News 在哪？这个我来看这个啊。
Go in 2020. The BC Liberals won 28 seats, the NDP won 57, the red, it's all gone. So let's take a look here at 2024, and we'll do this writing prediction tool. To you, the voter, how this map gets filled out tonight, but we know there are battlegrounds. And one of the huge stories in this campaign are the independents, and we're going to lay that out in a minute, but I want you to focus in on these numbers up here.
还是会 NDP 啊，应该是有可能。现在看NDP 还是领先挺多的啊。
So let's focus on those independent ridings. We're looking at the piece. That's Mike Bernier and Dan Davies. They could potentially pull off upsets. It would be the detriment of the Conservatives. But let's just say those ridings go Conservative. The same as Kootenay Rockies here and Caribou, Prince George as well. So Prince George, North Caribou as well there. Those are ridings that we're going to be watching as independents that could potentially go Conservative. Let's go into the interior now. So there's some very crucial seats that we will be watching in the interior, ones the NDP won last time. So the NDP won here in Vernon, one here in Boundary Similkameen. Well, if the polls are right, then these will go Conservative, although independents come into play.
他在说这些地方还是有可能是 Conservative 啊。
You'll see the number going up. Still, though,
34
NDP. We'll go over to Vancouver Island. Conservative strategists say they need to win at least a few on the island. Historically, it has been all orange. They are targeting here on the North Island. They are also targeting Courtney Comox.
他现在 potential 就把这个全部都给 Conservative。NDP 是占领了特别多的地方啊。这是 Nanaimo。Let's
say the Conservatives are able to win that pivotal seat of Nanaimo Lanceville, and maybe they win Ladysmith Oceanside. So on your first and now's old riding, right here, Cowichan Valley, let's say it goes orange because she is now running in Victoria Beacon Hill. We'll get to that riding at the end because it's so interesting. But I want to bring us over to Metro Vancouver now.
你看看我们 Vancouver 全部都是 orange 的啊。高桂林 只有郊区的都是 conservative 啊，市区里面全部选的是。你们能听得见吗？听得见他说话吗？Coquitlam Book Mountain 市中心全部都是那个 Surrey Langley Surrey 声音小了一点，好，给你加一个耳机。可能我讲话声音比较响一点啊，他的那个声音就小一点。
Cloverdale to the Conservatives, we're getting very close to that 47, and it could come down to Richmond. That's an area where the NDP did very well last time.
好一些吗？
Richmond Centre's also in play, but let's say the NDP picks up Steveston. Oh, the NDP picks up Steveston.
现在是寄希望于 Richmond。
Look, all of a sudden they're over that magic number. That's their path.
寄希望 Richmond 能够是能够变成 conservative。
That changes. Then they're able to get to Yaletown, and that is a big part of the conversation.
这才可能啊！他现在告诉你，就是相当艰难的才能得到啊。这里还有一个地方，
Let's say it goes green, and all of a sudden we're in a pretty wild situation here.
这才可能啊。他说这样才可能 conservative 才可能赢啊。我觉得真的悬了。我真不知道这些 Surrey 啊 ，Surrey 选 conservative。估计是他们的那个。
You're the ones that get to fill this out. You're the ones that get to determine who our government is. Doesn't matter what the predictor says. This is ultimately going to fill up in all sorts of colors. Then we'll know who won.
Light it up like a Christmas tree later on, Richard.
是我声音太轻吗？还是什么？
Also on the bottom of the screen, just below the
听得清楚吗？
their polls
还是
close, and we got a
电视的
little
那个
countdown clock for you, so,
视频的声音太轻了？
just under 50 minutes until those polls close. And we'll start to see results fairly quickly.
对的，还有50分钟才开始点票，他现在都是预热啊，所以我们就再聊一聊嘛。现在大选是个什么情况啊？你们可以在评论区聊聊啊，你们对大选的看法，或者是对一些政策的一些解读啊。是这个不响吧？
officer there today reporting turnout very light, and this is the Beacon Hill riding. So does that hurt?
现在好一点了。
First to know, agreeing with their trying.
华人和印度人都厌倦了 NDP， 所以列治文和树立保守党有机会翻盘。好的，这个讲得很好。我们现在有34位观众来看了啊，大家可以点点赞啊，让更多的人能看到这个频道。待会儿点票了，估计人还要多。
Issues election, right? The top three that we've talked about: affordability, housing, healthcare, crime, and public safety. Each party with its own strategy about how to handle those things, and we've brought together a brilliant group of strategists to talk about that with Jazz Johal, and we'll throw to them right now to get their thoughts on what to expect tonight. Jazz, great to have you on board.
Hey, great to be on board. I got to tell you, it's great to watch the election from this side of the camera than the other side. So I'm very happy covering.
他是 NDP 的，
watching what
后面写着 BC NDP 嘛。
I'm absolutely
橘黄的。
ecstatic that I'm not sitting in a constituency office.
我很奇怪，还有很多华人都，你看这后面有一个华人小哥是挂着 NDP 的牌子啊。
Because it is a very complex election, so many scenarios. We've got three great strategists. To my far left, we have Mike McDonald, of course, former Chief of Staff to Premier Christy Clark. To his right, we have Jeff Maggs, former Chief of Staff, of course, to Premier John Horgan. And, of course, Kate Hammer, former political advisor to Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne. One of the things that Richard brought up.
不过说实话，我们 BC 的这个 conservative 的 leader 啊，还是比较有点弱弱的啊，可能和 conservative 那种性格有关啊，弱弱的，不是那种可以大刀阔斧能够讲很多东西的。
This election certainly is very unique.
I think Richmond is an area where the BC Liberals used to sweep election after election all the seats there, and with the NDP vote coming down in this election, it would have
直
been
播
very hard
投
for
到
them
电视上看的话，
because
你就
incumbents
是
that were elected
竖
last
屏的呀，
election. But those two
你没有
independents made it
没有
more
那个宽
confusing.
屏的。
Potentially, you're going to split the vote.
他现在
with
让
the conservative
油管让我们
candidates
做
there.
直播都
And
是
maybe
竖屏
the
的。
NDP candidates may find a pathway to victory there because of the two independents.
And what do you think about the Peace Country? My two former colleagues, Mike Bernier and Dan Davies. I mean, that's always been a conservative part of the province. The old joke was you could run a dishwasher, slap a BC Liberal sticker on it, and you'd win.
Yeah.
But this is very unique.
NDP,
Both of them they're very well known.
They both have strong personal brands, but you could put a conservative sticker on that dishwasher and probably sell two dishwashers. That's a conservative country up there, and it'll have to be an exceptional situation where Dan Davies or Mike Bernier.
我不知道 NDP 在 BC 这里怎么会扎根扎得那么深
in
啊
the，Peace River,
这是
if the
有
conservatives
点问题
are,
的。
going to victory, that would be the first place you'd find it.
Yeah.
But they have
边上写了 47 seat need for a majority conservative on the government, not
Richard was
conservative.
talking a little bit about
47
Surrey,
seat
Serpentine, Surrey, Cloverdale.
有
Both of
47 个
these
席位
ridings,
啊，
in some
可以
cases,
作
they
为
won ridings of 60%
主要的
of the Canadian.
政府啊。
Polling is difficult enough. When they're really tight races, it's even harder. How do you gauge what the voter is doing? When you look at those ridings, how do you gauge what's going on? And specifically, how do you get that vote out?
Well, I think it's quite difficult because no community is monolithic. Every community
其
will
实
have different opinions and
新西亚
directions.
会说的那个 NDP 票仓啊，那个事情，其实在加拿大，特别是年轻人啊，这些洗脑的那些东西啊，其实还是，你看有那么多孩子都是好好的，都变成了那些奇奇怪怪的啊，去染头发啊，去打耳洞啊，当然要漂亮啊，我觉得如果染头发染个漂亮的那种，女孩子去染一个金黄色的那种头发，或者是都没问题。但是如果去搞一个这种紫色的、绿色的那种，我就觉得挺奇怪的啊。好好的人去搞一个这种，而且打着那种洞，脸上一脸的洞啊，从鼻子到耳朵到哪里嘴巴啊、舌头什么地方都是啊。这我觉得这些教育啊，孩子变成这样，我觉得挺可怕的。
This is a culture war party. MAGA has arrived in British Columbia. How do you see it?
That's a great question. And I think if you asked different people that question, certainly people inside the Conservative camp and some of them outside it, particularly former BC United.
保守式的教育还是有它的道理啊。
But I think we can definitely say that some of this rise has nothing to do with the BC Conservatives because a lot of that rise happened when there was very low awareness of their leader, John Rustad. So you have to give some credit to Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. And then the other thing I think is the end of BC United. Of course, those voters need somewhere to go. When that campaign was suspended, of course their numbers were going to go up. So there's an inevitability there that I think
现在是7点16分啊，还有44分钟。
I think what is underneath this and the question going forward is going to be sort of how the BC Conservatives have pivoted to the right compared to the coalition that was the Free Enterprise Coalition that was the BC Liberals, BC United before them, who were the dominant force of the 21st century in BC and who really were a center-right coalition. This new party really is rejecting that and moving further to the right. I think even in the way that deal was struck over the Labor Day weekend between
还有谁来了？大家在评论区聊聊天吧，有谁在啊？
come out of that with a lot of strong membership and a lot of people coming over from BC United to the BC Conservatives. The BC Conservatives, seem to approach
Bob 说
BC United
MDP 稳了啊
as though the voters
，MDP
had
稳了，
developed a bit of an ick for them.
确实是
And I don't think we know that
挺
that's
艰
true
难的啊
yet. So we're going to find out a bit more about whether this sort of more polarizing version of the BC Conservatives is what BC is ready for or not.
今天给大家直播一下这个大选的结果啊。
All right, Jazz, thank you, and thanks to the Hotel Pacifico podcast crew. I'm really
其实现在的媒体啊，基本上都是
Something Jazz mentioned about Kamloops being the
偏左的
bellwether.
啊。
Actually,
说偏左我也是很客气的啊，
Vancouver Fraser View is the ultimate
是很左的啊
bellwether riding
媒
in
体
BC. The
媒体
party
可
that
以
wins Vancouver Fraser View has formed
盯
a
着
government and is precursor to the Vancouver South riding.
保守派的那些人讲话的错误啊，去修改或者是去怎么样。
And you go back to 1963,
现在确实是啊，整个媒体
the winning party is the party
整个媒体是
from
偏
Vancouver
左的
Fraser View. We'll see if that's a truism that continues tonight. Or
所以
whether
他
it
采访的
takes,
所有人啊，
changes,
基本上都是比
course,
较
for the first time in
比较
history.
偏左的
And I
啊。
was just going to point out, pardon me, all the paper. It's not the polls haven't even closed yet. No, God, the stacks of paper over
Already
here.
going through stuff.
Can't wait to see what it looks like at the end of the night.
This is Zussman's election Bible to put together. Just to put together these things. I just hope everybody read this thing. A lot of great detail in it.
It's
我
a
估
very
计
good.
结果是
You're good at writing books, Richard.
跟降息50个基点差不多啊，大家应该都期望能有好的结果啊。再听一下这位的预测啊 ，Decision BC。
And we can actually start at this time with it was a dark and stormy night. Excuse me. All right, and in that book, will it be a conservative win, an NDP win? Will the Greens hold the balance of power? Let's go to Conservative Party headquarters. Those folks are hoping to play a starring role in this book. Jordan Armstrong is there with
这是
CKNW's Mike
conservative
Smith.
Yeah, Sophie, we'll pick up on the weather. We've been talking to a conservative strategist here, and he admits the weather is probably the wild card here. They're hearing about lighter traffic at polling stations today, but who that benefits, we'll have to wait to find out. But Mike Smith, it hasn't really dampened their spirits here. They're overall pretty upbeat.
No, it's an exciting night. I'm excited. I get excited every election night. And just speaking to some of the strategists here, we've had a chance to talk to a few of them here who are already in the room. And we were asking, and they legitimately think they can pull this off and make history tonight. So they're on pins and needles thinking what's going to happen. We did ask about the weather, and the weather is a really interesting wild card.
今天也挺奇怪的啊，这个天气是特别的
is that voter turnout is down in a lot of these ridings because of the weather.
特别的
So the question is, who does that
应
benefit
景啊
the most, right? Now you'd think that
天有异象
which
啊
voter is，
必
most
出奇迹
motivated to go
啊
out，
姜饼哥也希望能有
to vote,
出奇迹啊。
they're hoping it to be their supporters who want to get rid of an NDP government.
大家记得在 Donald Trump
And of course, there is still time.
2016年那个大选的时候啊，
Yeah, the
所有人都不看好
probably
啊
don't。see a lot of people here. They're still at the local offices.
Conservative 每次赢的时候都是这样。
Last minute. Mike, you've covered 8 BC elections. Have you ever seen a campaign as
Let's
weird
wait
as
for
this
the
one?
results.
No, I don't think so. I've covered a lot of campaigns, not as many as Keith Baldry, but pretty close. And yeah, this has been one of the strangest ones, if not the strangest one. Like, I've never seen an election campaign where one of the main parties contesting the campaign, in this case BC United, decides to just pack it in, cancel all their candidate nominations, and endorse the other party that they've been trashing for effectively a year, and then coalescing around the BC Conservative. So
今天应该是整个 BC 关心大选的人的重要的夜晚啊！大家来的人点点赞，给姜饼哥点点赞，谢谢大家。
But even if they end up with a large opposition, which is the other outcome here, that is historic in itself too. So, a very exciting night for sure.
A very weird campaign. Who knew a legging baron would come up in this campaign? But Chip Wilson was a name we heard several times, wasn't it? All right, we'll send it back to the desk for now.
Chip Wilson had a lot to say during this election.
Sure did, yeah. Well, yeah, and David Eby used him as a foil, basically saying, I've got nothing to do, nothing in common with billionaires. If you want to be support billionaires, vote for
其实你
conservative.
能看得出，这些主持人也好，这些请来的嘉宾也好，也都是很官方的啊，讲话都是很官方的啊，并没有就感觉很虚的那种感觉啊，讲一些有的没的。
They're also trying to separate themselves from some of the more fringe views that have bogged down the BC Conservative campaign over the last little while. We'll have to see if it really hurts them.
哎，大家都在这里啊！问问大家，我做的那个小视频讲那个挂牌房源的那个几分钟、2分钟、3分钟的那个小视频，这样分开，你们觉得好不好啊？因为 YouTube 希望大家能做一点短的小视频啊，他以后可能会把这些小视频放在那个就是 Shorts 里面啊，就是短视频里面啊，大家可以看得到。就刷那个小视频的时候，可能刷得到我的视频。大家觉得这样分开的好不好啊？因为我在平时的视频里面也会加上那个。 我也会加上那个，就是挂牌房源啊，只是我把它分开做一些，因为现在挂牌房源还是挺多的啊，所以大家可以在评论区聊聊，跟姜饼哥讲讲到底这样是不是好啊？ 或者是在有些什么方面可以有些改进啊。
I think probably from BC United people who've been compiling this information. The NDP's had this information as well. So the Conservatives did not really vet their candidates.
如果现在频道里有新来的观众啊，大家可以在评论区打个招呼啊。姜饼哥频道是给大家带来投资理财啊、房地产有关的那些信息啊。好，我们现在有39位啊，有39位了，人越来越多了啊。因为现在大家屏幕上看到的是 election 之前的一些预热啊，主持人和一些嘉宾啊在聊一些关于 campaign 的一些事情啊。我们关心的是结果啊，其实他们聊什么没有那么多，没有那么重要啊。大家对那个 BC 和那个的 NDP 的那个 BC NDP 和那个 Conservative 的 platform 大家都熟悉嘛？我给大家讲一下吧。两个党派啊，在经济方面，大家仔细听吧，我给大家讲，分开 short 也蛮好，接触面比较广。但平常影片也希望有，因为这有的我都放了，就是现在有太多甜品了，就是吃完主菜吃点甜品，没事我这里也端一个甜品上来啊，大家可以尝一尝，看一看有些什么新的，还有一些网友很热心啊，在那个小红书啊，在发邮件啊给我分享一些。包括加利图啊，大家都知道多伦多加利图啊，加利图也给我发来那些消息啊，关于房子下跌的那些信息啊。
Yeah, you bet. And I think it's also a safe bet. I know anything can go tonight. I do not think Chip Wilson will be here tonight at the NDP headquarters. I think we can say that for sure. Now, a few months ago, as Keith mentioned, the NDP could not have envisioned themselves in the position they are in tonight. This could be one of the closest elections in provincial history, and with the BC Conservatives of all parties as their main rival. Now, the path to holding on to power for EB took a drastic detour, as we all know, in August when BC United.
这位说，现在 Conservative 是有史以来在 BC 大选中占有最好的机会啊。因为之前都是 NDP 在。这次是最紧张的啊。
Is a clear and vocal appetite for change among a large demographic of British Columbians, those centrist voters who essentially say there is no good party to vote for in this election. They view the NDP as too far left. They view the Conservatives as too far right. And for this reason, we have seen a marked and strategic shift in EB's tone over the course of the past few months. Even before he was officially on the campaign trail, he reversed.
其实我觉得啊，这个47个席位可以得到主要的那个 government 啊，其实。谁做主要的 government 还不是最关键的啊，但是你如果有的席位更多的话，相对来说话语权会更多啊。鲍勃是支持 MDP 的啊，鲍勃是支持 MDP 的，没有问题啊，大家不一定都是全部每个人都有支持的党派啊，都很正常啊。
Is that of British Columbians, and the big question is, will they choose the NDP to lead the province for the next 4 years?
因为我们频道里应该还有一些有钱的富豪啊，鲍勃应该也是比较支持他们的一些政策啊。还有34分钟啊。
A majority government, but really 48 would be better.
Someone's got to be a speaker. It was interesting in 2017, the NDP was able to convince an opposition member, Daryl Plekas, to cross the floor, not cross the floor, but.
好，现在有41位观众了啊！我在那个，我把他这个声音关小一点，我来讲一下，我听我讲一下吧。他们那个讲的英文讲了那么快，也没有实质性的东西啊。我们讲一下经济啊，这两个政党在经济方面有一些什么区别啊 ？NDP Go Conservative MMPP 啊，你好，你这个名字没见过啊，是不是新来的观众？大家来了来，我们先来跟我来。大家好啊，我是姜饼哥啊，大家来了就。待会儿就留着看啊！我们来的新观众给姜饼哥点赞啊，订阅一下我的频道，谢谢大家。 我来给大家讲一下啊，我读一下啊，你们就不用看脸了啊。NDP 是温和的社会主义啊，这是别人写的那个关于这两个政党对经济方面的一些 platform 啊。希望政府掌控，靠收更多的税来补贴低收入，借此达到公平啊。这个公平它是带引号的啊。话说这招公平的阿根廷做过啊，实施以后，人均 GDP 从世界排名20啊，下跌到了120啊。保守党大家都很熟悉啊，自由的经济倾向于市场调节，降低企业和个人的税收，尤其是低收入者的税收啊。我觉得 NDP 应该那些对房东的那些我觉得 conservative 上来应该房价也会下降的啊。好，这个是关于经济方面的啊。我们再看犯罪方面的，这就是 criminal 方面的。NDP 是预防教育为主，降低犯罪，减少社会的负担啊，类似于加州小额犯罪不处罚啊，支持零元购。支持零元购应该不是吧？我觉得好像就是抓进去放出来的应该是 liberal 那些搞的啊。保守党是加强执法的力度啊，主张严厉的刑罚，就是你如果犯错了啊，就该打屁股啊，该干嘛啊。Conservative 是比较就是怎么说呢，就是执法力度要加强啊。关于毒品方面啊 ，NDP 是极度宽容政策啊，支持某些毒品的非刑事化，支持大麻售卖机，甚至在学校附近开设毒品注射屋啊，支持这个是大家所有选 conservative 的人最深恶痛绝的啊，就是对毒品的置之不理啊，而且也并不是置之不理啊，还甚至于纵容啊。我看我儿子学校边上附近的地方啊，开了一个卖大麻的那个店啊，就是。weed 啊，我看，而且门口停了个车，上面写着里面没有毒品啊，不要砸车啊！我觉得砸车的人不一定是为了毒品啊。保守党是主张重新评估毒品的政策，加强执法，支持通过医疗系统为瘾君子提供戒除，而不是鼓励使用啊。就是你有毒瘾的，保守党的人希望你把毒瘾给戒了啊，不要继续使用毒品啊。这个。对于有些吸毒的人，或者是一些怎么说呢，靠毒品这个生意啊，那些人啊，会觉得这是比较极端的啊。这么说，我说极端，可能有些人不同意啊，但是我觉得吸毒始终不是什么好事啊。作为中国人来说，我们国内来了之后之前我们也看到啊，毒品确实让一个朝代让很多怎么说呢，就是很好的经济啊，因为吸毒啊就越来越差啊，所以对毒品的纵容绝对是对整个社会的不负责。好，我们再看对那个彩虹啊 LGBTQ 啊，这个 NDP 是强烈支持推行各种法案保障这个权益啊，在学校开始教育孩子能男女互换，支持男生进女更衣室女厕啊，就是女厕所啊。保守党就不行了，支持都是矫枉过正哈，那就是应该两个政党平衡嘛，对吧？保守党就是支持 LGBTQ 的权益，但认为 LGBTQ 是小众人群，力度不如 NDP， 从未立法层面支持啊。就说这些人应该，我是这么认为的啊，这些人。老麦仙游来了，老麦仙游你好，老麦仙游你好，支持保守党，对，大多数人都是支持保守党啊，没问题，大家都是来看频道、来看视频的嘛，来看直播的啊，支持谁都可以，就像足球比赛一样啊，上海人支持申花队还是支持上港队啊？江米哥以前是申花球迷啊，因为那个时候没有上港队啊，后来江米哥挺喜欢胡尔克的啊，后来。霍尔克来了之后，就开始慢慢喜欢鲍勃威说支持 NDP 打倒房东啊。后来自从霍尔克来了之后啊，江米哥就挺喜欢上港队的啊。Rachel 支持 保守党啊。支持保守党大多数都是因为这些毒品啊、那些彩虹啊、那些原因啊。但是说实话，我觉得保守党对经济的发展啊，应该会有停滞的啊。大家，所以我以后做视频也会讲一下，就是在保守党如果真的以后上台了之后在经济方面我们应该怎么样去平衡吧？不能说发展啊，平衡好自己的平衡好自己的经济收益啊。所以保守党对那个彩虹的支持，你自己去彩虹啊，他们不管啊，但是不要去影响到是小众人群，不要去影响到别人啊，特别是孩子啊。移民方面啊 ，NDP 欢迎移民，提供更多的福利啊，这个和那个自由党差不多啊，就请来很多移民，促进经济啊，这个其实是好的，但是请来的人应该是要比较仔细的去筛选。你如果什么人都来啊，那就比较麻烦。特别是大家看到现在那个什么以色列、巴勒斯坦那个在多伦多市区的那些，就是举着旗子喊那个口号的啊，那个挺吓人的啊。我觉得如果在家门口，我都不敢让孩子出去啊。他们是在downtown好像啊，真的是乱来的啊。对，为了未来，保守党一定要赢啊！老麦鞋友，你好啊，谢谢你来给我支持啊。NDP 移民，保守党我继续说啊，保守党对移民是移民限制性更强，支持投资移民、技术工种移民，安全审查更严啊。我觉得这个应该是正确的啊，就你来的人必须得审查严格嘛，什么是阿猫阿狗都来了啊，最后搞了这里搞暗杀，那里搞刺杀啊，什么各种各样的事情都有啊，这其实安全隐患太多了啊。移民来了之后，应该带来工作机会，带来技术啊，带来资金，带来投资，或者是那些就是管理的思路那些东西啊，应该是带来都是好的东西，不能带来什么那些 criminal 啊，那些种族主义啊，什么要什么这里就是那个什么那个叫什么阿拉伯那个什么法要在这里实施啊，那个我觉得有点过分了啊。所以大家了解了这两个政党的对经济、犯罪、毒品，对那个 LGBTQ 那个彩虹的那个权益的支持，还有移民的这些支持啊，大家到时候看看啊。对的，对，那个伊斯兰教法那个挺吓人的，什么女的不能露脸啊，什么就好像我看是伊朗还是什么地方，就女的在路上不能自己出去啊，不能自己出门啊，反正我是不觉得这有点过分了啊，这有点过分了。好，我们继续看那个保守党已经完蛋了，高房价、无房户肯定支持 NDP 啊。NDP 包这样说吧，无房户那个高房价啊，因为高房价或者是因为无房户啊，都支持 NDP。NDP 在这里执政了已经很久了啊，这个高房价还继续高房价啊，无房户也没有变成有房户啊，所以我觉得支持 NDP 就能变成房价能下跌，变成有房户嘛，我觉得应该是挺难的啊。我们继续看看他们的讲些什么啊。很快了，还有24分钟啊。无论如何啊，谁赢了之后，我们日子还是要过的啊，所以没有必要因为那些对某个政党支持啊，谁赢了之后好像天塌下来一样。包括这次这么说吧，资本的力量是强大的啊，资本的力量很强大啊，很多人在自己的频道里说一些和自己想法无关的事情啊，资本的力量很强大。我们可以看到之前我说起的那个什么大伟啊，就是那个说加拿大移民的那个大伟在加拿大还是叫什么？那个就是他在之前就发了个视频啊，讲关于保守党和那个 NDP 的那些纲领啊。 在这之前我是不太想多涉及这些东西啊，因为毕竟我们也没有就靠个人，你只能在视频里面啊吐吐槽，或者是大家聊一下，能够接下来我们能够做些什么啊，能够防止在经济崩溃啊，或者是经济萧条的时候自己能够也不说经济萧条吧，有可能经济蓬勃发展的时候自己该做一些什么，都我们可以聊一些这个啊。但是你如果真的说到加拿大的政党到底是谁执政啊，其实每个政党都有自己的弱点和强项啊。好，大伟是在南苏里白石的吗？对，资本的力量是强大的，所以大家来了都给姜饼哥点点赞吧。我们接下来一起看那个点票啊，还有21分钟啊，21分57秒啊，大家一起看点票啊，这就像看足球比赛一样。昆特斯说，多伦多的无房族已经蠢一次了，选了组 Olivia 州。还好啊，你们 Olivia 州是在多伦多啊。你如果谢谢谁给我点了小红心，谢谢大家，谁给我点了星星。如果今天是 Olivia 州在这里做这个市长的话，我们今天温哥华下这么大雨啊，完了啊，交税交死了啊，好多地方车都淹了。我们来把这个声音开响一点。
Who's been a notable MLA for many years in Surrey. We have former Surrey Newton MLA Harry Baines here with us. After about 19 years as the MLA here since 05, you're kind of on the sidelines with this one in the sense that you're not running for re-election. But I still want to ask you, how did the NDP campaign go?
这估计 Surrey 的啊，两个印度人。
I think it went really, really well. I think David Eby, the leader of the NDP, came across as a person who understands the very important issues that people have their own minds, such as healthcare, such as affordability, housing, and cost of living. And he also came across as authentic, that he understands them and he has some real solutions to those. And he presented those solutions very coherent way and in a real way. On the other side, I've seen John Rustad, conservatives, they were mired in controversy, conspiracy theories. Many of his candidates were insulting communities with the racist remarks, and Rustad's inability to deal with that issue clearly shows there's a lack of leadership, clearly shows that he's not ready to be premier. And I think so when you look at the
所以我说 conservative 这个 leader 还是挺弱的啊。
John Rustad came with a very flimsy piece of paper only few days before the last.
这和左右两类人的性格是有关的啊。左派的人更能说，更能聊，更能给好多大饼啊，画大饼啊。右派的人比较实在啊，他讲不出太多的做不到的事情啊，他讲不出那么多话。
And I think people are looking for a real leader, and they see David Eby as a real leader, understanding those issues that are important to them.
房租是 NDP 让他跌的吗？房租不是姜饼哥做了1年视频跌的吗？大家应该选我啊，对吧？我讲了1年的加拿大房地产啊。
Less than 19 minutes until polls close. Thanks very much, Travis, and thank you, Harry Baines, as well.
Yeah, Harry Baines is a good example.
Bob 其实是讲反话啊，这个房价就是房租跌，就是给他们边上搞一点注射站啊，搞一点难民营啊，那房价不跌才怪呢啊！还有18分钟啊，18分钟就要开始了啊。John Rustad 还是确实是有点弱，这是我自己也是这么觉得的。我觉得 BC 这个地方应该选让一个更厉害、更有能力的人上来啊。Conservative 的人大多数都是这样。
The big issues provincially, of course, affordability, healthcare, and
Pierre Poilievre 是
and you know, in
Pierre Poilievre 是 怎么说是 conservative 里面的
Public safety is a big issue.
左派能力强的那些，就是能说会道的那种啊。大多数就是 conservative 的人说话都是比较实在的啊。
Sophie. Yes, so many issues to talk about. Who would have had rain on the bingo card for tonight?
星期二说多伦多无房的是否也无车呀？他们的车险涨了很多。每周市中心都是运动人节日啊。
We have Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West. We have Barinder Buller, former political strategist. We have Dr. Anna Wolak, family physician.
宝宝，你是想让 NDP 上台之后把那个难民营和那个注射站把温哥华给占满了，之后温哥华房价就跌了，大家都可以买房了，是不是这个逻辑
？About 15 minutes away to polls closing. Barinder, let's start with you. What are you most excited about?
没问题啊，不管是谁当选啊，姜饼哥都能接受啊。
It's early. We'll see, but I would say it wasn't particularly exciting campaign. It was kind of ho-hum.
关于药费和牙医费啊，你自己去使用一下啊。你如果没有好的保险的话，你的牙医像姜饼哥牙弄这个牙是花了不少钱啊，5位数加币出去了已经。没用的啊，这个牙医这个东西，现在洗个牙，我有保险的。之前不是那个 Premier 保险的啊，洗个牙第一次付40多啊，1年只能洗1次，就便宜一点的。之后就多了啊，就要付100多啊，洗个牙只是。你必须得收入少到一个什么程度才能洗牙免费啊？就是可以拿到他这个免费的那个标准啊。但是你钱如果少到这个标准的话，先不用洗牙了，你先考虑要吃饭的问题了，对吧
？Progressive parties tend to really dominate in advance polls. They try to drive out their voters and their base to advance polls. But I think we've seen shifts over the years, just generally in Canadian elections, even North American elections, where all kinds of voters go to advance.
我觉得今天算个预热吧，今天是10月19日啊，大家如果对为了牙医捡了芝麻掉了西瓜，对我们现在其实最主要的是一个风气的问题啊。我觉得选保守党，像姜饼哥支持保守党，是因为毒品泛滥，那个犯罪增多，包括是那些就是彩虹的那些东西啊。我怕这些东西以后都影响到孩子，我觉得我们应该把 conservative 选上去。至于牙医，至于房价，至于那个，我觉得谁上台房价要下降都是很难的啊。只有姜饼哥在这里不停的说啊，帮助他们不停的说啊，希望房价能下来啊。其实作为政府来说，他们谁上台都不希望房价下来。我也是在这里作为一个老百姓可以说啊，如果我是个政府，是有这个政绩要拿的话，我也不能让房价下来的，对吧？所以我们只是对吧？小道消息自己分享，自己自嗨一下啊。
On a day like today, we're pretty appreciative of having it there and the men and women who are working so hard to try and keep our communities safe.
Yeah, very good point.
宝宝，你这个也没西瓜，也捡点芝麻也好啊。那你要管一下，还有其他的民众啊，大家有西瓜的都不想捡芝麻啊。
I don't know. This election is so tight. It's so hard to see where healthcare will come from. Both parties have come out with a yes, healthcare is not doing so well in this province, but we are going to bring in new people and set up new infrastructure to fix it. And that's where it ends. And I want to see whoever forms government, like, pick up on those promises and follow through and actually say, and this is how we are going to do it, and then actually do what they say. That's more what I'm looking forward to.
Well, we might have to keep this panel going after the election so we can make sure all those promises are followed through on. We have lots more to talk about here, but we're going to throw it back to you, Chris. And
宝宝是拿选票换来的福利。
Results to finally come in.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sonia. 13 minutes until those polls.
还有13分钟啊。
That's right, and we talk about some of the ridings that we're watching, some of the areas that we're going to watch. Richmond was big, NDP having flipped some of those ridings back in 2020. What will happen here in 2024? That's where Grace Key is for us tonight.
每个人都有自己的立场啊，老麦先友也是，我觉得是这样，每个人都有自己的立场。 鲍勃威他是没有西瓜啊，所以他想捡点芝麻啊，很正常的啊。你看那个我们这个后面尽心尽力啊 ，NDP 尽心尽力啊，不一定都是富人选。
who used to be with BC United. So they are expected to be taking some of those conservative votes away as well. Some of the topics that came up in this community, crime, decriminalization, safe and
在 Richmond 那里有一些independent 的，有一些 independent 的人啊，在那里分掉他们的选票啊，可能让 NDP 更有机会啊。
Yeah, another place where some of
有
those
鲍勃威，他是我很理解的啊。鲍勃威他可能没有很多其他的事情担心啊，他只是希望他现在眼前能够拿到这些东西啊。每个人的所处的立场不一样啊。
He's running, by all accounts, a fairly energetic campaign and highly visible. So is Wendy Wan in the other Richmond riding. So you got these two independents probably not going to win.
所以不一定是富豪选 NDP 啊，很多没有西瓜的人也想捡点芝麻。
Holding 2 or 3 seats. There's no independent running against Amon Singh in Queensborough, but there's no Green candidate in Queensborough, which also will help the NDP chances there. They won Richmond in 1972 when it was a single riding. Never won ever since until 2020 when they took 3 or 4. If they can hang on to those 3 in Richmond, the odds favor them retaining government.
所以
the odds favor the Conservatives.
对，我明白，鲍勃威，所以 NDP 要制造像你这样的人越多，他们的选票就越多。所以接下来的日子就会变得更难啊，更多的人跟你一样。他们就会得到更多的人没有西瓜，他们就会拿到更多的芝麻啊，拿更多的芝麻跟你们换选票。好了，还有10分钟。我先预热一下啊，到11月6号啊，美国大选的时候，姜饼哥应该也会在这里做一个直播啊，应该会做挺久的啊那天。大家如果有兴趣的话，可以订阅我的频道啊，到时候回来，我到时候做直播之前我会发消息啊，大家可以一起来看美国的大选直播。这其实关乎明年加拿大的大选啊，而且整个世界的格局也相当有关，包括美联储接下来的动作啊，包括和中国的关税啊。
win this election, and that's because there's a real appetite to tackle some of the major issues affecting this urban riding, things like homelessness, the drug crisis, homelessness, public safety, and of course affordability. And there's also a strong independent candidate, as you mentioned, a former BC United candidate, Dr. Michael Humer. He is a former thoracic surgeon, and he also wants to tackle healthcare. We should also point out that a vote splitting on the right, political right, may affect this outcome. It may actually favor the NDP candidate here in this riding. So there are many factors at play here in this riding, and it won't be much longer until we really do know what direction the voters here in this riding will take.
48位啊，大家来了，给姜饼哥点点赞吧，让更多人能看到我的频道。还有9分钟啊。就要开始出结果了啊。
That's right. All right, 9 minutes, about 9 minutes until polls close, and we expect that results will start coming very quickly after that. We thank you very much to those viewers out in global Okanagan who are watching, to everybody who's watching on those streaming services, and to people who are listening on CKNW radio as well. Glad to have you with us. We'll take a
我先出去看一下孩子啊，你们先看这个，我2分钟就回来。OK， 还有8分钟，我回来了，我去看看孩子们怎么样，看电视看了怎么样。 把这些房东都搞破产了啊！先自己经济能撑住这10年。还有7分钟，他这唱票估计还得唱一段时间吧，可能要一会儿。他这个频道我看看，前面我看的那个，另外一个呢？现在每个频道都在放。这个是 Trump 的，是这个吗？这个 CBC， 这个 Global News， 再搜一下，还是这2个？我前面搜的那个没了吗 ？Corona， 哎，前面搜的那个。没了，我还是就看这2个吧。
There's more nervous apprehension out there, I think, in the two.
看这个吧，前面有一个，前面那个好像没了。
We haven't seen. I mean, 2020 was sort of over before it began. It was in the middle of the pandemic. Oregon was very, very popular. 2017 had some doubts. In 2013, we thought it was going to be an NDP victory. The polls were wrong. 2009, 2005, kind of sort of status quo elections. 2001, we knew going in the NDP was going to get wiped out. 96, we sort of knew, the NDP had a chance of winning. 91 was a wipeout election. This one, so tight. We've never seen the polls this tight. And neither party really expressing overwhelming confidence that they're going to win this thing.
You know who is practically jumping out of his suit with excitement and apprehension? The guy across the room.
很快啊，还有5分钟就要揭晓了啊，慢慢的揭晓了。
That suit that he bought yesterday.
Yeah, path to power.
Yeah, there are just so many factors at play. You described a lot of it, Keith. Like, it's quite incredible the things that we've seen.
我也是说，估计欢乐屋是不可避免的。哎，
They'll be the first premier from outside of the Victoria area or Metro Vancouver.
对，我们现在投票的是那些 culture 的东西啊。
Plays to what the Conservatives are hoping for here as we discuss the path to power.
他前面已经讲过这些了啊，可以去哪一些。
Stakeen, this is a riding that the NDP holds now. The Conservatives have some hope that they could pick that up.
现在就希望有奇迹发生了，大家来看的人都希望有奇迹会发生了啊。
So these are two of those ones. We don't spend a lot of time talking about them. They are possible that they could flip here. That's what some people inside the parties have been saying. The
希望大家能够比较厌恶，
very well could win
比较厌恶那些毒品啊那些东西啊，去选择投保守党的票啊。我觉得特别是liberal 上台了那么久啊，应该需要改变一下啊。但是政党之间的平衡其实还是挺重要的啊。如果只是一党太厉害的话，这个政治走向也会走偏啊。如果有2党或者3党平衡一下的话，应该会好一些。姜饼哥是支持啊，没有毒品啊。
Again, this is a place where the NDP had breakthroughs in the last election, surprises and boundary Similkameen, and what was then called Vernon Monashee. It's now Vernon Lumby. If the NDP hold on to these ridings, that makes it quite easy for them to get to that position of power. Even if they can pick up Kelowna Centre, now you're getting.
现在有49位朋友啊，在观看姜饼哥的节目啊。我们今天是来看 NDP 和 Conservative 的大选结果啊。
And that will be a much closer election race if we end up in that situation. Vancouver Island is also crucial in all this story. And I want to focus in a bit on the Greens here. So the Greens have spent a lot of time
是这样的啊，那个姜饼哥是觉得，不管是哪个国家啊，每个党派都有他们自己执政的方针啊。Conservative 在这些就像毒品啊，像那些东西是做的 特别的好啊，它因为它的纲领啊，或者是它的现实做的相对是好一些，但是在经济发展上面，如果一味的都太保守的话，或者是怎么说呢？就是如果能够更好的去发展经济的话啊，我们对于老百姓来说应该也是好的啊。但是他们现在左的太左啊，右的也有点偏右啊，比较右啊，所以有2党或者3党能够制衡的话啊，相对来说是对于一个国家来说应该是走得更好，可以啊。大家其实看以前我们小时候看三国志的时候就是这样啊，三足鼎立啊，是最平衡的一种状态。毒品和 LGBTQ 那些东西应该是要，但之前没有那么厉害啊，就是特别是在疫情之后啊，这些东西一下子就给 pop up 出来了啊。我们来看结果，还有2分钟啊，2分钟就慢慢就出结果了。无论如何，我们都必须去接受啊，不管是结果是怎么样。现在有55位观众来看了，大家请帮姜饼哥点点赞啊，也可以关注一下姜饼哥的频道。他是在说有哪些。
Coquitlam-Burke Mountain potentially goes conservative. And now to finish it off for the NDP, if they win these seats in Surrey and Richmond, the election is over, right? They get over that mark, they win their majority government. But if the Conservatives are able to win in Surrey and in Richmond and in Vancouver, Yaletown, there's that number for them. They get over that 47, they have the majority.
他现在就说现在是很
cleared out. No more of that. No more projections.
特别接近啊，2党之间的那个选票是相当的接近。好，大家还有1分钟，好，但激动人心的时刻就要来了。精神故乡崩塌了。江你好。人都没有了。
There certainly is, and actually up until just a couple of minutes ago, the volunteers, the staff here were outside of Melissa DeGenova's campaign office here in Yaletown. They were jumping out of people, making the most of every minute that those polls are still open until
好了，8点钟他们就关了啊，大家还有最后一票的，看看谁是投最后一票的人啊。现在好像天气好一些了啊，没有下大雨啊。
So that's an indication of how important this election is. So this riding in particular, really a bit of an epicenter of a lot of election issues here. We've got public safety, we've got the toxic drug crisis, housing affordability. One thing that's interesting in this area in particular is the demographics. Very few seniors, a low number of children per household here as well, but a lot of renters, a lot of owners who use a lot of their income on housing. So the predictions there is that it could lean a little bit more conservative. Melissa DeGenova, the most well-known candidate for Sydney Councillor, up against a very recently retired VPD officer Terry Young and down at Lynn McKinsey.
这个是蓝色的啊，
All three party
第一个看到的是蓝色的啊。
they are taking it very seriously.
这个戴眼镜的大哥哦，开心了哦，大家都开心了，选那个 conservative 的开心了啊，这个是蓝色的，哦耶，第一个。
Vancouver, Yaletown.
Yaletown.
Am I writing? You know, we
Vancouver,
talked
Yaletown.
about how the NDP are very strong. Oh, I should mention, sorry, polls have closed. Polls have closed.
Yeah, we just passed it. That's right. The countdown clock went away.
Countdown clock disappeared. So we'll start having results hopefully in about 15 minutes' time. But what I wanted to say is Vancouver is very rich with NDP supporters, obviously. But in two ridings that we might, a couple of ridings we might see a very close race. Yaletown being one of them, Langara possibly.
Yeah, Langara is the other one. Again, the gap there.
会不会出现奇迹啊？大家等待。
2020 election. The demographics there are changing in the NDP's favor. Some of the boundary changes brought in by the Independent Boundaries Commission, they did add 6 more ridings.
More than 1 million people in BC vote in 6 days. 6天里面有100万个人去投票了啊。
What they did was take the sort of the North Kitsilano part of the riding across Falls Creek and take it out of the riding and put it in South Granville riding. That's a traditionally
鲍勃会说德州是共和党啊，德州是
so that's been taken out of the riding, which
绝对
makes
的
it less
，Texas 绝对是共和党啊，也就是姜饼哥一直想去的啊，达拉斯就那里太热了啊，姜饼哥最怕热。
into the friendlier riding of South Granville. So the NDP's hold on Vancouver Yaletown used to be Falls Creek is much more
前面是不是说 Yaletown
before the boundary changes?
We talked earlier
好
about a
提早去投的，
riding. If there's one that you at home or
希
listening
望
on
能
radio
实
want
现
to
大家的
keep
心
an eye
愿
on,
啊
what's。the one riding that you say, I think it's Vancouver Fraser View, that has been sort of that's been the way they vote has been
民主党是 NDP 和 Liberal 啊加在一起的啊，这里是照道理应该是 Liberal 是左那个 Conservative 是右啊 ，NDP 应该是夹在中间的啊，应该是两面调和的，但是他现在是左转啊，和那个 Jagmeet Singh 和那个裘多两个就一起啊，搞了一个什么协议啊。
We'll be bringing you those results as soon as they start coming in, probably 10, 15, 20-ish minutes from now. We'll share them with you no matter how you are joining our coverage tonight, listening on CKNW, watching online, watching on Global Okanagan, or on your favorite streaming platform. You'll also be able to see the numbers as they start to add up on your screen, riding by riding on the right of your screen and by the parties on the bottom of your screen. And of course, Richard Zussman will be joining us from the Results Center as well.
社会越来越好，就是安全，没有注射站，没有难民营。难民营应该放远一点啊，因为有难民，肯定有难民营啊，就是 homeless 那些 camp 啊，应该是有啊，但是应该放远一些，不应该在车站附近啊那些 mental health 的那些人啊，应该有专门的地方给他们去啊。 房价的话，谁上台都差不多啊，没什么大不了啊。对，drug 的话，如果经济慢慢变好的话，这个 drug 会越来越少啊，因为经济不好的话，很多人都通过这个方式来让自己啊感到比较嗨一些啊。
The riding of Coquitlam, Burke Mountain. This is a riding that both of the leaders have spent some time in. And if you look at the history of this riding,
小时候自由党没对，小时候以前的自由党是没有那么做的啊，他其实应该大家都是偏向中间一点啊，你偏左一点，他偏右一点啊，大家那个现在是极左啊，那一边如果不是极右的话是没有遭到。哦，大家后面在干嘛？哦，在叫。
We have the conservative candidate Stephen Froelich. I met him for the first time.
这里又是一个 conservative 赢了。
We've been chatting a bit about what this riding is like and what your experience has been running. How are you feeling tonight?
I'd say I'm cautiously optimistic. I spent the last 10 months door knocking.
Conservative 有三票了啊，暂时领先。
What would you say the number one issue when you talk to voters was?
Overwhelmingly so is cost of living. I mean, people are just having a hard time making ends meet, and they do want to change.
不要在群里面，不要在评论区啊，拿那些东西来吵啊，大家支持自己的政党啊。
Conservatives, their feeling for a lot of them is this is going to be a good night for them, no matter what the outcome is.
大家也不用光看新闻啊，看结果啊，赢也好，输也好，大家都得接受。
Where this movement has come from in just a little less than a year, going from really an also-ran party to possibly.
现在我们有54位观众在观看了啊，人是挺多的。现在有些地方已经睡觉了，但是在 BC 的这些朋友啊，包括我姜饼哥的一些在多伦多的一些朋友啊，都在关注这些事情啊，都希望 Conservative 能赢。
Results in here with the Conservatives jumping out to a very early lead with three leading or elected in 3 ridings. We'll just say leading for now. That's Bruce Banman in Abbotsford South, the Conservative.
Abbotsford South 啊，这个 Bannon 赢了啊。
And in Prince George Mackenzie,
Prince George 乔治亚那个王子城啊， 60对20啊，这个是赢得厉害了。Simon Arm 啊，这个也是姜美哥经常去旅游经过的啊，也是赢了，59对16、15啊，这个赢的都是轻轻松松的。昆德是说姜美哥是有气度的，不愧是良心博主啊，就。我不能太左，也不能太右啊，就做视频也好，要公正，要公平嘛，对吧？有好的要说，有不好的要说。以后如果真的 conservative 上台了，他也会有一些东西可以要指出的啊。你不可能大家觉得我是支持conservative 的啊，就肯定是不会对他的一些东西、一些政策抨击啊，我也会说的。大家都希望把日子过好，所以谁上台对我们来说有影响啊，但是大家还都必须得接受啊。现在是3-0啊，其他都是0 ，conservative 得3票。
For the NDP in the future.
Well, okay, I think we're gonna say, let's
SL Man， 你知道有很多有孩子的人，他们真的会投 NDP 票，因为他们希望他们的孩子被人认可啊。他们的孩子是那个彩虹啊，他们希望他们的孩子会被认可。我很不理解，我也很不能明白啊。所以，谁又赢了啊 ？NDP 又得票了啊。
A total question of like, will there be repercussions for David Eby on this? Will this continue to be a discussion and a point of criticism of the NDP? And then will David Eby get criticism within his own party and with voters for not sticking on that? And neither happened. It went silent. So it probably was the right move. And I think the way they
所有的地方郊区都是保守党的呀，对吧？这个不用说的。
Jeff, I want you to jump in on this.
郊区肯定是保守党。
Any longer-term implications for Mr. Eby or for the NDP from walking away?
第一个开票的不是白石，第一个好像是一个是 Simon Arm， 一个是 Abbotsford South， 一个是还有一个是什么地方呢？还有一个 Prince George 是3票。对，毒品和变性是真的，大家需要去抵制的啊，这个东西。放到哪里都不会是受欢迎的，我觉得啊，除了那些有问题的人。
Do you see something like that happening on Vancouver Island? Because there's a lot of talk about
真理必胜
pulling in traditional NDP voters, moving them to blue. Do you see some of that phenomenon happening here in this provincial election?
NDP 赢了挺多的啊，这里这个后面在看的人都在叫啊，马上就要改写了啊。好，现在是12-10啊，几分钟里面12-10啊 ，Conservative 12票，12位赢了啊 ，NDP 10位赢了啊 ，Green 赢了一个啊 ，Green 基本上就2个到3个，就是分享权力的一个政党啊。
Now, one of the things we've talked about the carbon tax, we talked a little about orange voters potentially going blue. We have a federal election next year. Whether Mr. Trudeau wants one or not, it's time to.
其实明年的大选是最关键的啊 ，BC 还不是最关键的啊，但是 BC 的转向啊，可以给大选带来很多啊，特别是 Pierre Poilievre 带来很多的信心啊。
Well, I think the rise of the BC Conservatives was on the coattails of the federal Conservative surge nationally. And the fact that the carbon tax was taken off the table is largely because of the Axe the Tax campaign.
加拿大有问题的人不少，真的，特别是城市里的那些。
This would be a petri dish in British Columbia for what people might think will happen federally. So I think that could have a big impact. And if he doesn't make, if it's an NDP victory, then it's like, well, the blue wave fell short, and maybe opponents to federal Conservatives can take something out of that. It is a bit curious to me.
PP 上台解决不了问题。他只是提出问题，但只要他上台不再制造问题，或者是减少制造问题，那就是解决不了问题，那也比制造太多的问题来得好，对吧？这是在这里好像在后面挺热闹的，都是 NDP 的啊。
Mr. Poilievre endorsed Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, during the last election campaign. I was hearing that a couple of weeks ago there was going to be some sort of endorsement. We certainly read articles recently that perhaps
这个 conservative 37了吗？
performance in the last debate, but you know, is there going to be some concern?
这个有点，我估计 NDP 后来还得追上来啊，现在已经37对27了啊。
It could have been a number of things, but I think if the Conservatives fall short tonight and Conservative voters are disappointed, I think they have to ask that question: Did we do everything we can to?
我们家有姜饼哥是 conservative， 我太太其实还是 conservative， 但是她还是比较支持，就是搞经济那些左的那些东西啊。她觉得一个国家或者是一个人的脑子里应该是有2个东西去平衡，而不是一个筋去往右走或者是往左走啊。他是学心理学的，所以拜登曲线，拜登曲线那就没辙了啊，没问题的，谁怎么曲线怎么尿尿都行。
And you see the Conservatives starting to take these leads, and then also right here in Richmond. So I want to show you some of these results.
Oh, 你看
，Look, Serpentine River again, a key number to watch. Lead 133. Polls reporting 4 of 19. Elections BC promised the results would be coming fast and furious, and they are coming fast and furious.
Look， 全部都是蓝的啊。
Focusing in on Jody Tour is the Conservative against incumbent Andrew Mercier. It's a 296.
Willowbrook, Lanley, Willowbrook， Conservative win 了。
There, and in the other area, we spent a lot of time focusing
爸爸，你可能要失望了。
in Richmond, and it looks like the Conservatives again. It is still very, very early, but these are the trend lines the Conservatives want to see.
Richmond Stevenston 47%对35.6%啊。没有拜登曲线的话就。
This percentage number goes up. Likely will take from the Conservative again early, just 3 of 21 reporting there. Also want to show you Richmond Queensborough, Josh Johall's old riding. Steve Cooner again very early. Amon Singh is
Richmond Queensborough
just 1 of
20 54%对42%。
You've seen the green on that screen. This is where it's coming from. This is a riding where the Greens finished second last time.
The Green 倒赢了一个在内陆的那个 West Van 赢了个 C2 Sky 那里赢了个 Green 啊。列治文没有让人失望。
And we'll show you some of the trend lines. As we get more and more polls coming in, these lines will tell you a lot of stories around how those leads are changing. The other place that seems to be a little bit different is Vancouver Island. So we'll focus in on the island. This is an area where the NDP has historically done incredibly well. Well, look, the Conservatives are off to an early lead. And this one would be a major shocker, but look, it's just a very close 6-vote lead with 3 of 33 polls reporting incredibly close. But this is potentially some of the story that we're seeing. We're starting to see the Conservatives resonate in some of these places where they historically have not done very well. And last one I want to show you, we're seeing a lot of blue here. This is one of those seats that the Greens have held. Sandwich North in the Islands.
鲍勃可能今天要让你失望了。没有拜登曲线就要失望了。今天其实特别的奇怪，就是在城市里面好多蓝色啊。去投给了 Green 是支持 Green 是支持同性恋的。
So let's take a look at where things stand now with the polls having closed just 15 minutes ago, but results coming in fast and furious. We'll take a look at leading and elected. Well, we haven't projected any one candidate elected yet, but the Conservatives are leading in 37 ridings right now. The NDP in 27 and the Greens in 1, that West Vancouver Sea to Sky riding that Richard just talked about. And again,
本拿比才300多个人投票啊，太少了。
Oh, I think the Conservatives are very happy here, but we're yet to hear from 28 ridings.
你 Westminster 全是吸毒的啊，全投吸毒的，全投
橘黄的啊。They're winning in some of the key ridings. that the NDP picked up for the first time in 2020. And those
Green 的
are the
原住民
ridings
居
that
多
need to
啊
win, to finish strong and potentially form government in this province. And so far, it looks pretty good.
投给 Green 和投给 NDP 没什么区别啊，他们都是支持这些的。
areas we knew would be watching is Maple Ridge. Richard, you've got some results coming up.
Maple Ridge
now.
姜饼哥住在 Maple Ridge， 我们看看啊。
There are so many things going on here. So let's go back into Metro Vancouver. We will focus in on Maple Ridge, which is going to be right here on the big screen. This whole region is going to be very, very interesting.
Maple Ridge 全
This
是
is one of the battlegrounds that we've described.
这个是
And
Bob
Bob Deeth is up 86 votes again. 3 of 23
很
polls
接近啊
reporting, but extremely close. Bob Deeth first elected in 2017. But this whole Fraser Valley region, I'll scroll out a little bit. This is the path that the NDP took to victory last time, and it's a very different story again. Very, very early here, but Heather Moss out to a huge lead. Again,
没有拜登曲线的话，基本上 Conservative win 了啊。现在就是期待有拜登曲线啊。
Where in the more rural areas, it would favor the Conservatives. More urban areas could favor the NDP. So on a
比如今天发大水了吗？好像伯纳比今天发出来好多都说发大水了。
We expected the Conservatives could have their gains, but it looks like early here the NDP is hitting those areas where they need.
王好义说，我住西温啊，有钱人啊，表扬一下有钱人来看姜饼哥频道啊。我投了 Conservative， 不像 NDP 拿我的钱去交税啊，都有。谢谢你啊。Maple Ridge 啊。
We knew this was going to be incredibly close election. It's
还没结束呢，他还没有结束呢啊。
We're getting results of pretty much every riding but one. So
你看他现在已经45对45了，看到吗？
votes out of 2 of 22 is very interesting. And you know what? They delivered. Elections BC said we'd be getting these fast. We are getting them fast, and it is giving us a sense now of what we should expect here. The Conservatives are having a good time working their way through into Surrey.
你看
So these are some of the ridings
市区的全部都是橘黄色的啊，房价越高，全部都是橘黄色的。橘黄色的。
moved here when Trevor Halford ended up running for the Conservatives there after BC United fell apart. He was the incumbent. Brian Tepper leads over Ginny Sims, longtime incumbent, by 153 votes. I'll show you another one up here in Surrey North. So this would be a major surprise. The Conservatives had a gut feeling about this. They felt like they were
NDP 出现大家都预计到了啊 ，NDP 出现拜登曲线啊。
It is early. 4 of 18 polls reporting the lead is 109, but this election is as close as people expected it to be. So that one is very interesting as well. Obviously, into the Richmonds are interesting, and let's focus in on this riding. Keith and I spent some time talking about Burnaby North. We grappled with this one because historically, this was a BC Liberal seat, but it seemed like the NDP had solidified itself in Burnaby. Well, maybe not. Again, it's very early. 3 of 18.
Burnaby North 就是那个 Brentwood 那里啊，房子卖不掉那里啊。
There are so many ridings that have lots of votes still to be counted, so it's hard to be. We're nowhere close to definitive at this point. I want to show you the one positive sign for the NDP so far, right here, Vancouver, Yaletown. You know, we've seen Alyssa from there.
几个芝麻不够你分啊。
3 of 19 polls are reporting here, but so close, and we'll see these trend lines change as it goes. But at 45, 45, 2, it's quite the start here as we start seeing some of those trends, and those places we expected could switch are switching, guys.
Incredible.
There's a missing riding somewhere.
Yeah.
We're missing one reporting riding, although our system doesn't seem to indicate where that is. But yeah, this is the scenario we're talking about.
Conservatives have the lead now in 8 Surrey ridings, and this would be a dramatic turnaround. This again could flip the election on its head. The NDP, you just saw the Surrey North riding. That used to be Russia Singh. That was basically
它的数据一直在变啊。
from the old Surrey Wally riding.
Maple Ridge East 那个 Mock 已经领先了啊。
Now you've got the Conservatives. It's early on, but again, we don't know what pockets of the riding are reporting in versus others. But the Conservatives have to be very happy with what they see right now, even though it's tied 45-45. If they can hang on to some of these Surrey seats and the Langley seats, Abbotsford Mission, a lot of ridings that the NDP picked up for the first time in 2020. Now the Conservatives have either a small lead or a significant lead, and this is why right now this could go down to the wire.
免费洗牙，你要住不起房子才能免费洗牙啊。 不是所有人都能免费洗牙啊。
will win his seat in Nechako Lake. So the first Conservative to be elected since 1978.
1978 by-election, and you see David Eby with a significant lead in Vancouver Point Grey. So again, over Paul Ratchford for the Conservatives. And Sonia Furstenau has a slight lead of just 31 votes over incumbent Grace Laura. That's my hometown riding.
That is going to be a close one to watch for sure. Let's check in with Richard right now as these results come in. The map starts changing shape.
Yeah, we found the one, and it's not missing, it's a tie. That's the most exciting thing on the map. So it's 1-1, so it's not very many votes are in there, but it's a tie. So they have some votes in there, but that's what we're still waiting on is Skeena.
这个地方只有两个人投票啊。
All right, let's head to Conservative Party headquarters, where our Jordan Armstrong is with CKNW's Mike Smith, and we saw an early Conservative lead, tightening things up a bit now, but I'm sure they were excited, Jordan.
Yeah, they're definitely excited. You know, 25 minutes ago, party insiders were still, some of them at least, were still content to form a strong opposition. But now they're flirting with the prospect of actually pulling this off. Very exciting in here for the supporters, Mike.
Oh, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is an incredibly historic night in British Columbia that we're witnessing here right now. This party could actually pull this off, coming from like a century in the political wilderness to potentially winning this thing. Incredible. I mean, it is razor tight. It is super, super close. But the people in here are getting really, really excited.
这次其实可以从焦灼的状态来看，Conservatives 已经算赢了啊，之前他是根本就没有什么机会的。
All right, let's take a look at some of the other results. Thank you, Jordan and Smitty. In Vancouver, some of these we're going to see are not huge surprises.
This is one of the safest seats in all of BC.
加拿大会出现老川式的人物嘛？期待啊 ！NDP 也选了一个啊，66%啊，这个什么地方的 Vancouver Hastings 为什么都选 NDP 呢？大家明白吗？大家在评论在聊天区聊聊 Vancouver Hastings 为什么都选 NDP 呢？是不是有一张身份证都能去选呢？
Ravi, Chris Gala says, "How are you feeling tonight? It's feeling like a party in here.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?"
I'm tired. I'm tired. I just dried off because I was door knocking with people for 6 hours since this morning. It's wet out there. But we've got hundreds of volunteers. We're probably just coming in right now, drying off, watching this. And so I'm excited, I'm tired, and looking forward to the results to come out.
对啊，毒窝。
So looking at these results,
Ash 州说毒窝有什么好选的啊？肯定是选支持毒品的。那么你选 Conservative， 把你全部都一锅端了。
So anyone that's followed BC politics knows, except for
Hastings 那里啊 ，Hastings 那里房子应该要跌一波啊。
They've always been really, really tight, and that's what we expected today. That's why we have so many volunteers working right to 8 o'clock, trying to pull every single vote. And it's gone to a place where British Columbia has always been, which is two parties fighting it out. And
Bob 为抽大麻身体的危害比抽烟小，自己了解一下，不管对身体有任何的伤害啊。都不应该去触及啊，不是因为这个有大有小啊，有些人觉得这个没问题就去啊。如果对身体有害的话，都不要去啊，特别是那些毒品啊，不管是软性的还是硬性的啊。
He's confident. Okay, thanks, Sarah.
All right, well, we're at this dead heat right now, as you can see on the screen. NDP leading or elected in 45 ridings. The Conservatives, okay, we're just going to refresh it. Let's have a look now. All right, that's pretty much the same. NDP leading in 44, elected in 1. Conservatives leading in 44, elected in 1. That was Nechako Lakes, John Rustad's riding. Greens are leading in 2 at the moment.
Here's the close races. Skeena, this is going to go back and forth all night. Richard just showed essentially tied there.
Yeah.
Maple Ridge East, Bob Deeth, the incumbent, always a very close vote there. The NDP winning in the new riding of Kelowna Centre so far, very slim lead. Surrey Fleetwood
还早了啊，只有30几、40几啊。
Slight lead in Saanich North and the Islands, which the Green Party had.
We've talked a lot about battleground Surrey and some very tight races that I'm sure we'll see tonight. Richard Zussman has more on what's going on in Surrey right now.
Yeah, so the bottom line numbers may not be changing, but we're getting more and more votes into the system. And I do want to focus in on Surrey because this looks very different.
还差我们的一个点。
I'm going to show you that. So this is 2020. You can see that, the big orange blob right in the middle of Surrey. Well, 2024, again, it's very early, is shaping up a little differently. And let's focus in on some of these ridings that would be gains. Surrey North, Rashna Singh is the incumbent, but this, just a 109 vote lead with 4 out of 18 polls reporting there. Then we move over here. The riding of Surrey Fleetwood would be a pickup. This is one the NDP won in 2013, but again, it is so close. Just 19 votes. So maybe all those hours that Ravi Kahlon put it in the door in the pouring rain.
现在还早呢，时间还没有结束呢。
Because it seems like this is going to be a vote where every single vote matters here. It's going to be that close. 5 out of 19
Ashley 最后要抱我去 Hasty 啊。
Guildford again, one of those 2013 pickups for the NDP. Hanvir Radwana is leading Conservatives 229 votes over Gary Begg, the incumbent. This is one that's 5 of 19 polls are reporting there. And as we work our way through Surrey, these were the battlegrounds that we had focused so much time and energy on. Surrey Serpentine River, the leaders went there again and again and again. Linda Hepner, the former mayor of Surrey, leads over Boltej Dillon by 229 votes. Dillon was the first RCMP officer to wear a turban as part of his uniform with the RCMP. 10 out of 19
今年的 Surrey
so we're starting to see
NDP 输了挺多的啊，我觉得在那里印度人挺多的啊，但是 NDP 都没人支持啊。
So we don't have any real data here. 2-1, 1 vote lead. So we don't have any real sense here. And this is a riding where we spent a lot of time talking about Surrey South. Brent Chapman, controversial comments on a social media.
Surrey South 58%领先于42%啊。
Looking for answers. He wouldn't take our questions. He is leading by 734 votes over Haroon Ghaffar. And just last stop in this Fraser Valley area is here in Langley Willowbrook. We showed this to you earlier. Still very close. 394 votes. Jody Tour leads over Andrew Mercy, the incumbent. 6 of 20. And I want to get all the way out for just one moment here because there's one riding that's standing out to me that could be really interesting. And this is a trend that we thought about early on, but it seemed like the Conservatives had solidified themselves in Penticton, Summerland. We didn't spend a lot of time focusing in on this riding, but with 6 of 26 polls reporting and the NDP leading by 175, it's very interesting here. And we've seen the numbers bump around that bottom line. So we finally got that Skeena vote in, so it's 46-40. Oh, it switched again.
其实有很多 independent 的分了很多选票啊，这个其实是个很大的问题啊。
Very quickly, and those numbers are changing. I'll show you 2 ridings that just
这里都换了啊。
So this island right here in North Island just flipped, and I'll show you what that looks like. Anna Kindy leading by 37 votes. Look at this. So these are the vote switches as we're getting more and more data into the system.
哪里都有拜登曲线啊，这个
They're now up 49 to 42, and we look at Courtney Comox as well. Again, a one that just flipped. I'll show you what that looks like. The NDP got off to an early lead. The Conservatives have been picking that up. For our listeners on CKNW, what I'm showing now is a bar graph that we're at 40% of the polls reporting, and the Conservatives have just taken their first lead in the riding of Courtney Comox. You'll remember, it was the one that was
不是他这个现在开出来的票还没有到那个啊。 他现在是49领先于42啊，就是票还没有开完啊，就是鲍勃说的那个拜登曲线啊，就全部开完了之后，他不知道了啊。目前是暂时领先啊，49比42啊。我操，还让我看，不好意思啊，姜饼哥没有定他的广告啊，他还给我看个广告啊。
Their message is resonating with people on the island of frustration around the way government works.
Burnaby Center 啊，这个康啊，这个姓康的女士啊，领先。
Which is a one again that wasn't really on the radar screen and is one that has popped up here as a potential for the Conservatives.
If it stays this way, that's a Conservative majority government, and the business of government becomes much easier. And they can exert their will as they have described it.
Now, some of these ridings are still razor thin margins.
大家看这几个主持人的脸色啊。
2
to 1. I'm not sure how you get a poll in Surrey, the most populous area of the entire province, and only 3 people voted there.
Although there was an atmospheric river.
Strikes me a little. It'd be interesting if there really was a poll with only 3 people in the entire poll, which is a big.
现在 Conservative 暂时领先49比42啊。
Some of the ridings where we are projecting winners.
好，又有一个 elect Vancouver Scotch Corner West End Vancouver elect 第2个 Vancouver 啊。
Again, and this is a popular vote now. When you look at the numbers at the bottom, it may not reflect that, but the NDP is certainly in the lead with popular vote.
That's why we're not going to call this yet, because the popular vote is still sort of guides sometimes the ridings. The NDP won the election in '96 with a less popular vote than the BC Liberals. Usually, the NDP's vote is considered to be what's called more efficient. There's much more populous in the key ridings, but right now, it's not translating in what you see at the bottom of the screen, which is not. Reflective of the popular vote. It's really
多美丽，还是那个东西啊，估计就是的吧。
This is going to be ping ponging all night. 48, 43. That's going to go up and down, up and down, up and down. We could end the night with neither party at 47.
West End 其实可能是这样啊，有钱人他不去投，那些在那里的路上的人去投啊。 我不知道那些 homeless 人是怎么算，他投哪里啊？他是跑去哪里投就投哪里吧，还是怎么样？
Yeah, we'll take a look at that in a moment. I just want to focus first in the Okanagan, but we'll get there. I promise, Keith. I promise. The independents are a big story tonight. We knew this, and we'll see where they were pulling votes. I want to show you 2 of the closest races in the entire province right now. In Vernon Lundby, Dennis Giesbrecht was the United candidate in Kamloops.
下次联邦大选 P 能不能赢，要看今年11月6日美国的大选结果啊。Vernon 怎么接近怎么那么接近 ？Vernon。
And you'll notice that bottom line, 48, 43 to 2 now. That's the key number to keep watching. And I want to focus right in on Kelowna Center. Just a 95 vote lead. So the question is,
Kelowna 也是毒品啊。
How much is he pulling away from Christina Lowen, the conservative candidate, as Loyal Woolridge?
所以那些你们看那些独立的选票占掉了很多啊，这些人其实是来搅局的，等于选上了也没用啊，也没有席位啊。
We're going to focus in on this riding on partly Vancouver Island and then the islands themselves. Saanich North and the islands. Rob Botterill's taking the lead. This is Adam Olson's old riding. I'll show you this. Look, this is a true 3-way race. And we expected it was going to be, but you can see how tight it is. It's quite incredible with almost 70% of the polls reporting.
Saanich North Island 啊，那里3个党派争相当焦灼啊。从目前来看 ，Conservative 是领先的啊，48比43，但是领先的人数很接近啊。 大家就怕最后来一个拜登曲线啊！好，我们现在频道里有70多80个人了啊！大家给姜饼哥点点赞啊！来的人可以订阅一下姜饼哥的频道。如果你们到11月6日啊，我也可以在这里直播一下美国的大选最后的结果啊。
With the Greens running down in third, and it is incredibly close back and forth race between the 2 of them, and one that's seemingly keeps switching. Another extremely close riding on the island. Anna Kindy leads by just 7 votes. Michelle Babson is very popular local, but there's something happening on Vancouver Island around a conservative sentiment, and they are tapping it into that tonight. You know, the Free Enterprise Coalition, the center-right party, however you want to describe them, they had nothing on the island coming into this. And now they are leading on 3 on the island, and they are really sweeping in. That story remains. I just want to show you one last thing before I go back to you guys. Richmond. We focused in on Richmond. 2020, look at this. Orange, Richmond, right? 2024, blue. And it's these
2020 Richmond 全部都是
Richmond Center with incumbent or with
Red
and non-affiliated candidate.
Red and Orange 啊，现在都是 Conservative 啊 ，Richmond 改变挺大的。华人对我们，特别是我们频道这里啊，华人对这些毒品啊那些东西深恶痛绝的啊，而且大家都在上面互相在。
But this looks very, very strong for the Conservatives there. And this one was expected to be closer. Michelle Molyneux, the Conservative, leads by 365 votes. So we said it all along, you know, Keith, Sophie, Chris, we said it. This election was going to come down in part to Vancouver Island, Richmond, and Surrey. All of those places are coming out for the Conservatives.
温哥华啊，那些在那里建了那么多毒品的啊地方的，全部都是 NDP 的啊，包括那些彩虹的地方啊。48比43啊，越来越接近了。
Independents not leading in any of the ridings where they're running, record number of independents running, but they might be playing a factor.
高桂林和 New Westminster 那里，那个挺多的啊，那个叫什么 LGBTQ 的挺多的啊。
But again, some of these, I'm just looking at some of the ridings here. Some of these ridings are reporting with
大家等我一会儿啊。
2% of the polls in here. But now we've got David Eby elected in Vancouver Point Grey. That's our second leader elected. After now we've got Grace Lohr continuing to boost her lead over Sonia Furstenau. That's becoming fairly significant there for the NDP in Victoria Beacon Hill
and for the Green Party.
Yes, so if their leader gets defeated, that's bad news. And John said, as we reported earlier, very easy win there in the Chaco Lakes. Again, no one was expecting anything different than that. And this, again, very strong, historic riding for the NDP, New Westminster for Portland. The first time New Westminster has not appeared as its own
我去给孩子搞点吃的啊，喝点水。46对45了啊，我也出去了1分钟啊。又有一个 NDP 的选了啊。Vancouver Little Mountain 啊。
Looks like she's going to Victoria from Vancouver City Council.
Almost a 7,000 vote lead there.
Yeah.
Brentfield.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead. You go ahead. Adrian Dix, I told him we weren't going to spend a lot of time on his riding because there's no drama there. It used to be called.
其实也像那个一样啊，有摇摆州啊。
He's coming back to Victoria. And this is where Brenda Bailey jumped into this.
BC 现在执政党是 NDP 啊。
Vancouver South Granville, where she had been in Vancouver Falls Creek, which was less friendly than NDP. This is much more friendly, as you can see, almost more than an 8,000 vote lead. And Richard wants in.
Yeah, because this is one of the most incredible scenarios I've ever seen. And, you know, we're not done yet. But imagine this situation. 46-45, the Greens hold the balance of power too, but their leader has lost. And they end up having two newcomers in the legislature in Jeremy Valeriet and Rob Botterill, who end up having to negotiate a deal, and it's unclear who the leader even is. And I want to show you where that riding is that just flipped. And we described it earlier as one of the closest in the entire province, and it's right here in Vernon-Lumby. So it's about the efficiency of this unaffiliated candidate, Kevin Acton, who is running for BC United, pulling from the Conservatives, and Harwinder Sandhu leading by just 51 votes. That is, in essence, how close this is. The NDP holding on to these seats in part because of help from independents. Yes, it hasn't shown everywhere, but it is one of the places where it's personifying what we may see tonight as we start seeing again a solidification of these results.
Razor thin right now, 46 ridings for the Conservatives at the moment, the NDP with 45 and the Green Party with 2.
Jordan Armstrong is down at the Conservative headquarters. We'll check in with him tonight along with Mike Smith of CKNW. Jordan?
Yeah, Chris, this race is spandex tight, and pretty much everybody here has their eyes glued to the results. I think even the line to get a drink has died down. I don't think anybody's waiting. Everybody's just paying attention to the numbers that are coming in at rapid pace.
那么接近的话 ，Conservative 已经 win 了呀，对吧？
Yeah, if they were going to make history tonight and actually win this election, they had to punch through in places like Richmond, Surrey, the Fraser Valley, some of these key ridings in Vancouver Island, and they appear to be doing exactly that. This room is absolutely electric in here tonight. It was cautiously optimistic at the start of the night, but now they can feel like maybe we can pull this off. It is super, super close, as you mentioned, but they are winning where they need to win to make this happen. It ain't over till it's over. And it could be a long night before we get a final answer here. But this room, people here are super excited.
Yeah,
他说了啊 ，Richmond、Fraser Valley 啊 ，Surrey 和那个 Langley 已经完全都变蓝色了啊，所以他觉得他很有信心啊。
16 votes separating the Conservatives and the NDP in Wanda-Fuka-Malahat. Okay, just to
不管结果是如何啊，都是大家都应该接受。
Leading or elected now in 46, so we're flipping these numbers back and forth. The Conservatives now in 45, Greens still holding on in 2.
And Bruce Diamond, as expected, elected
Abbotsford South 啊
that is
大比分领先，
very safe riding for
赢了啊。
Kamloops North Thompson.
Kamloops North 啊，大比分领先赢了。
But this is a rural riding in favor of more conservative leading parties, and that's what's happened today. Peace River North, this is where Dan Davies.
Peace River North 啊，大比分领先赢了。NDP 只有5.5%啊，那里对那个毒品是深恶痛绝的啊。Caribou 啊，大比分赢了啊。
Easily and has been elected in Caribou-Chilcotin.
So here's a look at the popular vote as things stand right now. The NDP just under 45% of the popular vote, and the Conservatives right behind them with 43.2%. So the Greens with 8.4 and others with 3.4. Richard, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to show you the two ridings that have flipped here. So let's focus on Courtney Comox, 290 vote lead for Ronna Ray Leonard with 19 of 25 polls. And you can see heading into that last poll, she just flipped that lead. I want to go to show you in Richmond. Let's go right in here.
White 你好。
And give you a sense of what's going on in Richmond. So we see the NDP.
还没有啊，他还没有结束啊。
She leads by 7.
现在就是所有的 Vancouver 那些，所有那些 Vancouver 的那些毒品屋的附近啊，全部都投，全部都投。哦，这个 Stevenston 开始选 NDP 的人多了啊。
And with the numbers as they said, it would be the Greens that hold the balance of power. We'll see what the strategy panel has to say about this all. They're with Jazz Johal, and he is with the Hotel Pacifico podcast crew as well, Jazz.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we've been following all of this very closely and looking at the numbers as well in front of us. Let me go to you first, Mike McDonald. What are you seeing at this point? What are the trends you're seeing?
所有的 Vancouver 选票都投给了 NDP 啊，都是希望毒品屋继续，都是希望那些福利继续发，加税，反正投票的人可能也没有地方被加税啊。
So, the voters always have the last say, but right now I'd have to say the Conservatives
目前看 NDP 比较领先啊，
where they needed to do well.
公权啊，46比45领先，还没有结束呢，还没有结束啊。
Jeff, what are you seeing right now? I mean, when Mike brought up the issue of Surrey and Richmond, I mean, there is a different reality when you're talking to Cantonese-speaking voters, Mandarin-speaking voters, Punjabi-speaking voters. How do you sense those two areas and how the NDP actually approach both those communities?
Well, I think it's different in each case. I'm very heartened by the fact that my friend George Chow is winning in Fraserview. We talked earlier about
什么样的结果大家都得接受啊，没办法的。
Those communities are very diverse. They've got very different interests, and there are a lot of issues arising for them that campaigns needed to speak to. Maybe the extra analysis.
他这个是领先的人数啊，并不是那个啊，是领先的人数。
And Soji as well. I'm just looking at the numbers as you were speaking. I think it switched over to 47-44 and it keeps changing. But Kate, let me go to you. What are your thoughts right now? What are you seeing?
Well, there's a lot to think about right now, and it keeps moving, and you're hearing it behind us as people react. But let's say two things to take away from this. So certainly the Conservatives are winning where they need to win. They seem to have some real inroads in Surrey and Richmond. And I think there's some important questions to ask about the unusual demographics we saw behind support for the NDP and support for the Conservatives. Namely, that younger voters seem to be going to the Conservatives, right? And that's going to help them in those ridings. So, and also going to be kind of a bedrock of that kind of discontent. My life is unaffordable, and maybe a realignment we're going to need to watch. The other thing I just want to name, independents don't look like they're going to get elected tonight, but they are a major factor in some really tight races, and I think we're going to be looking back on that and seeing them as the difference makers.
Mike, I want to go back to you for one final point here, which is Brent Chapman. Lots of news in and around some of his past tweets. Offensive tweets, according to the Muslim Association, Muslim organization. They've certainly raised that issue. Mr. Eby, in the final days of the campaign, actually visited the Muslim communities as well.
还没有结束啊。
But you look at the numbers, sizable South Asian population, Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus. And at the end of the day, they seem to be winning the Conservatives.
其实我前面已经说了啊，就 NDP 如果是没有大胜的话啊，其实 Conservative 这次已经算赢了啊，已经有些地方已经开始
So the
turn
impact of Brent Chapman
blue
may
了
have
啊。
felt in other places where there's lots of moderate voters that may have considered the BC Liberals in the past but couldn't go to the Conservatives.
Man, the numbers, as we're talking, continue to change. So we're going to toss it back to you, Sophie and Chris and Keith and Richard, because as we're talking, I see numbers going up and down. So you guys pick it up. We'll keep watching and get back to you.
Yeah, we might be a long way from knowing exactly how this thing is going to settle out. We are at a majority of polls reporting in most ridings, but this thing is going back and forth and will continue.
And let's just recap the numbers. The NDP leading or elected in 47 ridings, which is that magic number. The Conservatives with 44 and the Greens with 2. And it just keeps,
and just flipped again,
changing.
48-43, so they're at that mark.
你看这几个节目主持人都是 NDP 啊。
But there's a good dozen or so that are really, really tight, and they're continuing to flip back and forth. I wouldn't
还要假装很公正啊。
with 48, the NDP with 43. Within 5 or 10 minutes, this is how close some of these races are. And Richard is chomping at the bit.
We have some races I think we want to show you.
Okay.
Those races? Yeah, let's take a look.
These are the close races.
Very close races.
As I mentioned, 3 ridings held by the NDP right now, held by less than 75 votes in each of those ridings. And then by contrast, Surrey City Centre, normally a very strong NDP riding, the Conservatives with a narrow 48 vote lead there. And Maple Ridge East, formerly Maple Ridge Mission, again, election after election, a very close race, no difference tonight. And Richard Seatston, now the NDP has suddenly jumped into the lead there with just a lead of 122. Aman Singh, the incumbent there.
All right, Richard, back and forth, back and forth.
It's quite incredible, and I'll show you where these are flipping. And one of the storylines we're going to hear a lot about are those candidates that seemed controversial for the Conservatives, and there seemed to be a
NDP 当选的话，我们接下来的投资啊，包括买房啊，
That's one of the flippers.
所有的计划都要
North Island, though, this one looking like a cliffhanger.
好好要考虑一下啊。
Up by 154 votes, 21 of 40 polls
特别是我们住在Vancouver的这些人啊。
all night long. So let me solve that mystery for you right now that I alluded to. We're going to go into Vancouver. We're going to go to the riding of Vancouver-Langara. We'll focus in on this. Sunita Deer has taken a 273 vote lead here over Brian Bruget. JB Stein was a BC United.
BC 一直是很左的啊 ，BC 本来保守党是一点席位都没有的啊 ，BC 是很左的啊，之前是 Liberal 和那个选的都是 Liberal 和 NDP 啊，之前是觉得 NDP 能把 Liberal 干掉啊 ，BC 是这样的啊。 还没有结束，还没有结束啊！看看我们看看保守党能拿到多少席位吧。
And Sunita Deer is in the lead in that riding, which is going to be one of those really interesting ones to watch. There are 2 battlegrounds that I thought the Conservatives needed to make inroads in.
鲍勃买不了房，他就希望有个牙医保险嘛，
And so far they are
所以他就投了那个。
Yes, there's a lot of efficiency happening in Surrey for the Conservatives and Richmond for the Conservatives. That's the big stunner. But Susie Chant leading by more than 3,300 votes in North Van Seymour.
所以 NDP 上台的话，如果这里犯罪率升高啊，包括那些叫什么？ 那些毒品啊，那些东西应该继续啊，应该会继续啊。
votes in that election. The NDP won it last time, but with Finn Donnelly. So Jody Wickens is leading by 371 votes in a race that has gone back and forth as we have now more than
你看都是拜登曲线嘛，都是到最后来个拜登曲线。
There was another flip just now. You'll notice on the bottom of your screen, another one just flipped. 46-45-2 it is now. Again, we're in that situation.
都很焦灼啊，都还没有。
So we'll get to some of those
为鲍勃鼓掌啊！
because there are just so many close.
谁是鲍勃？鲍勃是要芝麻，他说他没有吸管，他要几粒芝麻啊，他需要牙医啊。
Keith, wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something if we're standing here tonight with Courtney Comox as the one that determines a minority or majority? I just don't know how to put it into words. Based on what we experienced in 2017, if this is the one that somehow ultimately is the decider in what is, again, one of the closest elections in BC's history.
Well, we made reference throughout the campaign that we could be seeing a replay of 2017. In 2020, Richard and I have written notes on this and memos to everybody. throughout the 2020 vote, it was a bit of
还没有结束啊，不用为谁鼓掌啊。 不是网红，是这里，包包是在这里。你看前面的聊天记录嘛，你可能来的晚没看到。包包是在前面支持 NDP 啊。谢谢魁省人民，祝福啊 BC 人民。
Again, a number of ridings are very, very either small number of polls reporting or have a really close, very short gap.
I will say, as close as
是本房间的网红啊。
my results here say Kelowna Centre is there's only a 51 vote spread right now. Is that the one you want to talk about?
I want to show you one that's even closer. No, it's even closer than that. Look at this. Surrey City Centre, you know what that means? Tie. Like, this is incredible. So a tie in Surrey City Centre with 18 of 20 polls reporting. Wow. This is as close an election. We have so many ridings across BC that were within 100.
Surrey Centre 啊，46比46啊，现在还没有结束啊，大家不要放弃啊，继续看啊。
We are still winning, and elections BC again has delivered. These polls are coming in fast, and this tie here. Again, Surrey City Centre, this historically was very safe for the NDP. Bruce Ralston's old riding, one of the largest margins in the province, so we're going to keep watching this one for you.
And Surrey's very close. Panorama, Guildford, Cloverdale, and Serpentine, all very close races currently held by the Conservatives.
It goes back to the...
还没有结束，大家不要放弃啊。
We always try to repeat before an election. Every vote matters. There's going to be a lot of people sitting on the couch going, "Oh man."
所有叫 Vancouver 的地方全部选了 NDP。
We have so much more to discuss. We'll keep an eye on these numbers.
并抢饼哥风头没问题。
And I guarantee there's going to be a surprise on the backside of it, so stick around.
到时候会有 surprise 啊。今天有点播了晚了啊。大家继续看，继续聊好吗？我们。 继续看，接下来怎么样？不要放弃。谢谢站在饼哥这一边的啊。对，姜饼哥的频道应该都是思路比较正常的人啊，不正常的人有，之前被鲍勃时期，大家都提到鲍勃啊，鲍勃都去哪里了？他也不出来。 现在又是回到48比43了啊，所以还是挺焦灼的。Vancouver 每天枪林弹雨的那些人，竟然能选 NDP 啊！我觉得是 Vancouver 有很多人他不去选啊。 他买了房子，他住那里，他不去选啊，所以很多人选了，那些人选在那里选的，他可能就想要一个哦，鲍勃来了，鲍勃 ，NDP 稳了，我们看一下啊，不用着急啊，稳了也怎么样呢？ 大家在频道里的给姜饼哥点点赞吧。我们看一下接下来会怎么样。你们继续聊天啊，我去一下洗手间。
Well, we still haven't decided anything, Decision BC, because it's too close to call right now. The NDP are leading or elected in 48 ridings, the Conservatives in 43, and the Greens holding on to 2 so far. And 47, of course, is that magic number.
That's right. This is a look at the gains and losses since dissolution. Keith?
Yes, well, the Conservatives had nothing really going in terms of elected, but they did have 8. They're now up to 35 increase. The more interesting number, I think, is the NDP dropping 7 seats again. So it's reflective, I think, of a message being sent to David Eby. We'll see how loud it resonates. And now we've got the popular vote. Not much of a change since we last visited these numbers. So the NDP with more voters right now and more seats, but as I say, this is too close to call.
Of the two Greens, and we talked about it being a bit of a gamble for Sonia Furstenau, the leader, to run in Victoria Beacon Hill. Right now, she is on the outside looking in.
Yeah, Grace Orr has a significant lead, several thousand over Sonia Furstenau. The Greens, as you can see down there, do have the lead in Saanich North and the Islands and West Vancouver, Sea to Sky. So we could, we were talking off break, actually, Richard mentioned this before, we could have a situation where we go into the House and the Greens don't have a leader. Which, if we're in a minority situation, takes on all sorts of ramifications.
We still have a lot of close races. The Surrey City Centre, the gap is widened.
Widened? Is that what we call it, Sophie? It sure is widened. It's split wide open to a lead of 1 from a tie of 0. I joke, Sophie, obviously. It is like one of these things. And Keith and I talked a lot about this in the past. 2017. I don't want to reminisce too much about it. Don McRae decides not to run in the riding of Courtney Comox. They have a new candidate. Ronald Ray Leonard wins. Bruce Ralston decides not to run. If this is the one that decides it, I'm not sure how Bruce Ralston sort of looks at the situation, because incumbents always have an advantage. But let's move around a little bit. Just a wide margin here. Amna Shaw leading by just 1 vote. What an incredibly close race with 18 of 20 polls reporting. Surrey, and we've tracked here, and this is going to be really interesting to follow. You'll notice just a 40-vote lead. They don't have, there's something going on with the polling in Surrey Cloverdale. This, we know, is going to be one of the closest races in the entire province we expected going into this. We just don't have a lot of data here. So we're going to try to figure out what's going on there. You know, this is a new system from Elections BC. It seems to be going very, very well. So I just wanted to flag that for people, because it's we're not getting the data in a riding that's going to be very important. Here's another extremely close seat. And again, we're at 19 of 23 polls reporting, but it's only a 181 vote gap for Lawrence Mock. And all night it has been so close and has gone back and forth. And this closeness of this race is what makes it so interesting in that regard. But the New Democrats are in that lead again, up 48. And one of the reasons they're in the lead is because of this right here. Kelly Green's lead is growing. She's the incumbent at Richmond-Steveston. It could be because Jackie Lee is pulling votes away from the Conservative. Michelle Molyneux, as Kelly Green leads by 501 votes. And I just want to go over to Vancouver Island quickly, because that's one of those places where the Conservatives are hoping to have breakthroughs. And yes, this is the one that remains extremely close. 194 votes. Brendan Day, he was a BC Liberal candidate last time around. He is now the Conservative candidate. He leads Ronald Ray Leonard, the incumbent. And it's one of those ones, again, that has been close all night. And you know it gets close when I have the notepad out, because there are so many close races to follow. But the Conservatives haven't been able to have their breakthrough down here in southern Vancouver Island. They maybe thought they could, and I'll get rid of this quickly so I can get right in to Vancouver Island here. And I'll show you one that John Rustad visited. He was hoping to break through an Oak Bay Gordon Head, but Stephen Andrew running a distant third here, as Diana Gibson has been elected for the NDP in that riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head. And we'll take one last look here, and I want to focus in on this extremely close race. And again, it comes down to this idea, and Kate Hammer was hitting this point as well. Were the independents the one that pulled away enough here to help the NDP as they lead now? It's 47-44, so one of those close ones flipped. We'll find that in a moment. But Loyal Wooldridge leads by just 40 votes here, and clearly Michael Humer is pulling some from Christina Lowen and the Conservatives. The NDP had some hopes about this riding. They did spend some time in the Okanagan, and you can see why, because it has been so close. So we'll go back to you guys, and I'll take a look to see at the one that's flipping, because it seems like it's going to be one of those really close spots. I do have a suspicion here that we're going to go back into Surrey, and yeah, this is exactly where it is. It's Surrey City Centre. So lead grows to 9. So this is one of those things, like, Sophie, it is really quite incredible to watch how close this is. With 18 of 20 polls reporting, it is so close, and now just a vote lead of 8 for the Conservatives in that riding.
And you have a recount at what percent? Like an automatic recount at what percentage?
Very small number. I should have looked that up in the elections.
But that, I'm sure.
Yeah, that for sure. I think 30, 40, 50, those sort of situations is when we start having a conversation.
还是很焦灼啊！我回来了。
But a situation like that would be.
我看看大家讲了些什么啊？
Some ridings are far less contentious.
印钱发福利，查理说，羊毛出在羊身上。James 又说保守党还有希望啊。
Down at NDP headquarters right now with Nikki Sharma, who is way out ahead.
希望是不大。
Leading by several thousand votes.
我们继续看啊。
Yeah, I believe we've already called it. Congratulations.
这个频道是 NDP 的频道啊，所以大家这个频道都是带着目的来转播的啊。我估计 Conservative 当选的话，他这个频道估计也不给你看了啊，结束了。
You know, Nikki, all too well, the issue of crime and punishment and social disorder became such a huge issue in this election. How do you think that is being reflected in the votes tonight as we watch these numbers roll in and increase support for the Conservatives?
Yeah, you know, I heard a lot of things at the door when we were campaigning, and cost of living and housing affordability were always the top. And we presented our solutions when it came.
查理说，人总是看眼前的利益啊，这点很不错啊。确实啊，很多人都是只看眼前的利益啊。
And it looks like you have another 4 years. What are your top priorities for the next 4 years for government and for the province?
Yeah, I think the top issues that I heard were cost of living, housing, and healthcare, and we're going to keep working as a government if we get the trust of the voters tonight on those challenges.
As I mentioned, you had a huge
制造问题，解决问题，他就当选了。这个挺有趣的啊。没问题的。如果 Conservative 没有当选的话啊，这次也是赢了很多席位啊，是个很大的进步啊。明年还有机会。
And we had such a great team in the office. And you know, I think there's always things that you think about.
徐叶青说啊，但凡有份不错工作收入的啊，这个人基本上是享受不到什么福利的啊。这个确实是啊。你如果生活要过得好一点，有份好的工作啊，或者夫妻双方都有好的工作，确实是享受不到什么福利的。
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, 47, that magic number.
Robin 另外说，我的朋友圈都在说谈搬家啊，暂借 BC 啊。以后姜饼哥可能也会考虑啊，去搬去哪里好啊。
But a couple in Kelowna Centre, for example, the lead up there, just 34 votes for the NDP right now. So we're not there yet, folks. We're still got a ways to go.
John Snow 说啊，虽然没指望什么福利，但是不想 taxpayer 的钱都被浪费了啊，这确实是大家的心声啊。你没有想过要拿什么福利啊，但是钱不能乱花。
I just want to point out your bellwether riding of Vancouver Fraserview. George Chow with 91% of the polls reporting has a very comfortable lead.
很快了啊，很快就结束了啊。鲍勃威说 ，NDP 上台了啊，把房价打下来啊，把机会留给年轻人啊，我觉得这个有点想多了啊。谁上去了，房价都很难啊下来。
And they are having a challenge with the votes that were done in Surrey Cloverdale today. And we expected this to be one of the closest. One of two, it was a
其实大家可以看得出啊，在整个 BC 啊，这个 NDP 的根基啊，其实还是很深的啊。有这么多的人去选了，就基本上有50万的人去选了 NDP 啊，他有100多万人嘛，50多万的人啊，40%几50%，有50多万的人现在去选了NDP 啊，所以他的根基还是很强的啊。
There's no other riding with only one poll reporting, and only 1 out of 20 polls reporting there. Hopefully they get that glitch figured out. All right, our issues panel has been watching closely. I'm sure they have some thoughts. Sonia Sunger is with them. Sonia?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. You know, we are watching this all play out, and when we talk about the issues, we've heard so much about housing, affordability, healthcare. Let's talk public safety, because we know that is something.
NDP 现在是46比45领先啊，很焦灼啊。
We're seeing so far very strong results for the Conservatives. How much of a factor did their messaging on public safety, do you think, play in this?
I think huge, because it's we're not arguing statistics anymore. What people are seeing on crime and safety, they're seeing it with their eyes. And they're not just seeing it in Metro Vancouver, they're seeing it in the interior, they're seeing it up north, they're seeing it on the island. So I think that's a huge factor when you go out to the streets. And I've heard candidates from every corner of the province talk about safety and crime being a big concern. And it's not a stat they're pointing to, they're pointing to the streets where they see it. So when you're going, and that's an issue for voters, they're putting a blinder on everything else and saying, I'm going to vote for that because my streets, they look like a mess right now.
46比45啊，很接近。
Any other conclusion that public safety is a dominant issue. And I think the NDP lost touch with reality and they lost touch with the public on public safety, on drug decriminalization, on disorder. I think they tried to pivot, but for a lot of voters, it was too little, too late.
Maple Ridge East 啊，这个 Mock 领先。
Yeah, and Hilson, you were making a point about decriminalization and how the NDP was just kind of standing it alone when they were taking a lot of heat for what we were seeing.
Yeah, I mean, public safety comes down to two things. One, a feeling of safety versus an actual practical reality of safety. And the feeling part plays a big impact on the elections. And I think that one of the challenges the BC NDP had was they brought in this sort of, new policy around decriminalization, being one of the first provinces to try it out and one of the few jurisdictions in North America to try it out. And you saw that there was a progressive element, progressive movement that really advocated for this approach to address the opioid epidemic. The jury's still out on whether it's working or not, but the NDP had to do a shift.
所有当选的 conservative 都是在内陆的啊，都是在小城市的啊。所有的叫那这个 New Westminster Cochrane 那里，这些都是支持 NDP 的啊，那里有那个彩虹的路啊。
I think David Eby made the choice to sort of change the narrative.
确实，他的那些纲领啊，确实是受到了一些人的支持啊。North Island.
With this sort of decriminalization policy, and I think it's a question for the movement on what they can do to make something like that actually popular when they haven't really defended it.
Yeah, certainly. All right, and when we look at some of the writings, it's obviously too close to call, but flipping.
太多免费的肯定不是好事，这钱哪里有免费的？又不会天下飞下来，对吧？
South of the Fraser, healthcare has been a major topic, especially at Surrey Memorial Hospital. I want to get your thoughts there.
I think the race is going to be determined by whether voters want to give NDP the chance to finish what they started, to continue the plans that they have started and see them follow through.
毒品政策浪费了很多医疗资源啊！大家知道 mental health 现在是住的 mental health 那个监狱是住了很满啊，而且都是年轻人啊，这里面。
Healthcare and see that I want to be able to have a doctor. I want to not wait for like 10 hours in the emergency room.
所有的 conservative 不要放弃啊！
In 46 ridings. Let's throw it back to you, Chris and Sophie, for some more results.
就算今天 conservative 不能当选啊，好，你看这个老头，脸色变了啊，不行了啊 ，conservative 怎么会领先了？怎么会领先了？他不行了。 好，这个是 Victoria Beacon Hill。Beacon Hill 啊 ，NDP 赢了 ，Green 没了啊。Chinatown 那边 NDP 肯定赢了 ，Hastings 那里肯定是，那里是毒品屋啊。 几点出结果我也不知道，现在是现在9点多了吧？
Green vote has been going down the last few elections, and you have to wonder what the future of the Greens are without a leader in the legislature now. And we've got two of them leading in Saanich and West Vancouver.
Jon Snow 说 ，Jon Snow， 你这个名字我就一直觉得你是那个什么电影里面的那个。
Yeah, and one of the things too, just to that point,
这里又开始变蓝了啊。
part of a negotiating team, but not be an MLA. She has that experience from 2017. You talk about big names, Sophie. Let's look here, and we really are seeing the story of two British Columbians. The rural areas are going almost universally blue.
SM 说还没完，搞得不知道怎么回事了。谢谢大家都来观看啊，没事的，这个谁当选都没问题的，反正谁当选房价也没有那么快能打下来啊。那希望那些毒品的东西能够逐渐的能够拨乱反正啊。Sam Arm 啊，那个 William 当选了。好，这个 Anna Kennedy 又那个了啊。
Victoria Beacon Hill, Sonia Furstenau, who has lost in her riding. Let's join her at the podium.
To be an MLA
it's not the outcome that we'd hoped for in Victoria Beacon Hill tonight, but I'm so proud of the campaign that we ran. We knew we were up against a steep hill. We were trying something bold and new.
这个是，
but the
你看这个频道，他没有把那个 conservative 当选的人讲话放出来过，到现在，现在都把那个 NDP 当选的人讲话放出来啊。
We knocked on 14,000 doors. We attended every debate. We put forward a vision for this province and for this riding that I was very excited about. A vision centered on the well-being of people and communities, on
对，现在
nature, public institutions.
BC 省的那个 ICBC 的保险费要便宜多了啊，之前都是很贵啊，价格要下来的挺多。接受Bob的处方药没了，看来 P 有希望了。就是 Bob 说还有几个 NDP 的铁票啊，这 NDP 的铁票仓都已经开了啊，开了很多了已经。
Challenging task to run a campaign where the candidate was almost never there. They have been phenomenal.
少球啊，这个关于毒品那个救治毒品的那些医疗人员忙翻了这个事情，我很清楚的啊。我太太就是 registered nurse 啊，所以她也在各道各处啊遇到过这些看到过这些东西啊。好，现在是46比45领先啊。NDP 又领先了。
Incredible, really. It was always such a joy to walk into the Fort Street office and to really experience the happiness and joy and love that was building. Darius was always at the door.
对，医疗人员见过就知道了啊。
Ronnie and Peter and Beatrice leading the way. It has been the kind of campaign that I am so proud of. So it does appear that the Greens are still going to play a pretty pivotal role in the BC legislature.
Bob 是看中别人的免费医疗洗牙啊。
It's a strange time in politics when during an atmospheric river, people come out and vote for a party that's denying the reality of climate change. But hey, this is where we're at. I am so excited for Jeremy Valeriot and Rob Botterill. This is incredible. This is a passing of the torch, and I am going to be there to mentor and guide and lead in any way that I can.
就光看他的这个东西干嘛了？怎么不放其他的？他这个是特别好吗？讲了。我们关心这个选票的问题啊 ，Conservative 现在又46比45领先了啊。
We're as the representatives and the elected people, there's
看
always a
其
team
他的。
behind us. But first and foremost, to everybody who volunteered, who donated, who came and showed up, who gave us your support, thank you so much. None of this happens without you.
好，结束了，别说了，我们要看其他的数据。
To Maureen Balsillie, Adam Olson, and Molly McKay, the three people that led this campaign, a huge thank you to all three of you. Adam, I don't know where you are.
Bob 为这个讲的也其实也挺，这难民营把房价打下来到底算好还是不好呢？食物救济站这个算好还是不好呢？那应该加拿大全是那个难民营吧？
Keith, what did you get out of
Well,
it?
she made a very good point.
都是难民营，哪里还有
Now the Greens still have a pivotal role to play
还有机会
in
呢
what happens in the BC legislature. Right now, those two seats, when added to either the
我
NDP
最喜欢看这个
or
老头的
the
表情啊，
Conservative
他的表情
would
好
give
像
that one of those parties a
有什么
majority
预兆
in the House.
啊
Now you have to appoint a speaker.
别急啊，
for the
大家都
overall
别急啊
amount of
，hold
NDP.
hold on。
That 45 number includes them currently holding Kelowna Centre, in which they have an 8-vote lead. So again, these numbers are going to change a bit. Conservatives are also holding a very narrow lead there
要
as
对
well.
conservative
I don't
有
see
信心
the
啊。
Greens willingly going to work with the Conservatives. You heard her take a shot at the Conservatives, and I think Richard wants to jump in here on that point.
Yeah, because you heard Sonia Furstenau now say, I'm still going to be around to provide leadership here. And she took that very divisive shot at the Conservatives, and it doesn't seem like the Greens would have any interest there. But as you described, Keith, the math is very hard. And this brings in a really challenging
Doug
scenario.
Flash say,
I think
Bob,
one
你
that
可真
none
幽
of
默
us at
啊
this point after 28 days
鲍
of
勃
campaigning
讲话
want
有
to think
点
about. This could be a situation that is not tenable, that we may be forced to have another election. We're not there yet. We know the NDP would get the first opportunity to form government. They would have to prove that they could hold the confidence of the vote. This could take time, but something so close like this with the challenge of a speaker could be something that ultimately leads to another election. But I'll show you again why we can't decide anything at this point is because of the ridings that keep flipping. So you'll see the Conservative lead 46,
对的
45.
，Conservative
The two
46
will go
啊
into the
，NDP 45
Okanagan
目前来
now.
看啊。
This is the one Keith described, and I want to show you on the big screen. Kelowna Centre is the riding the NDP felt it could have a chance in, an additional riding, and the vote lead is just
这只差
24
24票啊
votes.
，Kelowna
And we
Centre
have 20 of 22 polls reporting. So we're starting to
别急
solidify
啊，还没
this.
结
It's
束了
been
啊，
close all night,
很
and
接
the
近了
reason
啊。
why, in part, is because of Dr. Michael Humer. He was the BC United candidate. He has pulled 2,400 votes, largely away from the Conservative, and you can see Christina Lowen is just leading by just 31 votes there. There are two other ridings I want to show you quickly in Surrey, because that's partly why we have not, again, been able to declare what's going to happen here. The riding here in Surrey Centre is extremely close. 12-vote lead for Zishan Walla over Amna Shah.
这里只差12票啊。
The Conservatives had a sense that this is a place they could break through. We had a hard time believing it, considering this is an area that the NDP have historically done extremely well. It was a big part of Rashtra Singh and Bruce Ralston's old ridings. It was an NDP stronghold.
现在有很多的地方都在转向啊，并不是说有很多 NDP 的铁票仓都在转向啊。你看这个像这个 Surrey Centre 啊，印度人的天下啊。
in this province, and this is the one we still are getting slowly more data here. 11 out of 20 polls, and Eleanor Sturkle leads by 520 votes in Surrey Cloverdale.
Cloverdale Conservative 还是领先啊。
Marginally, yes, but it is starting to grow as Surrey Cloverdale's worked out their password issue. And just before we say goodbye, I want to take one more look, or back to you guys. I say goodbye. You were not saying goodbye. We got a lot more work to do. we're far from saying goodbye. Kelowna Centre, and we're gonna go there in a moment. But I just want to show you that lead of just 31 votes. Christina Lowen leading. Loyal Wooldridge here is Michael Humer.
这不讲过了吗？这个。
Yeah, that is a tight one. We have about half a dozen ridings right now where there's a less than a 1% lead. Very, very tight races, and Kelowna Centre is one of those. Just 31 votes. All right, let's check in with our Claudia Van Emmerich in Kelowna Centre. And
White chart
反
过来了。
all night there, Claudia.
It certainly has, Sophie. Yeah. So what a nail biter of a race here in Kelowna Centre, this newly formed riding. We knew it would be a tight race, but boy, oh boy, is it ever close. Loyal Wooldridge, the NDP candidate, is not here yet. His supporters they've been cheering throughout the night as he's had a slight lead over his main opponent, Christina Lowen from the Conservatives. She has taken a
他今晚直播这个东西，大家都看了紧张啊，只差1票。
And so it is a nail biter here. With me now is his campaign communications coordinator, manager, Jessica Samuels. And what's it like for you to watch these results coming in and it being so very close?
Oh gosh, Claudia, tonight has been a roller coaster. I mean, I don't think
大家在线的帮姜饼哥点点赞啊，谢谢大家。
the throat is tightening, a little bit nauseous in the stomach. But you know what we have to remember is this campaign was really grounded in the community, and it really demonstrates the type of candidate that Loyal is. We had more than 100 volunteers of all ages and from all backgrounds, and that really shows that they're ready for a candidate like Loyal. What it also shows tonight is that the community overall is speaking. We love the voter turnout. It's super close. We do wish it is not quite that close, but honestly, we're here to support Loyal, and we're here to support the community.
And obviously, like you said, it is so close here in the riding of Kelowna Centre. You are still hoping for a great outcome, and really this outcome, if Loyal was to be successful, would be historic.
You know, I think when you're part of a campaign of this magnitude, you just get out there and you do, and then you stop and you realize exactly what you said. It's historic. So not only do we have a new riding, we have an NDP candidate in this riding. NDP, it's been a long haul for them. It's been decades since they've been elected. And of course, we have some other parties that are rising up that maybe haven't been necessarily as significant in this community. So there's so many levels, and we cannot discount the hard work of our candidate, Loyal Wooldridge, and we cannot discount the community having their voice and saying, we want to make a difference, and that is what's so important.
All right. Well, we are going to keep a close eye on this. Again, a nail-biter of a race here in the riding of Kelowna Centre. We will keep you posted as more results trickle in.
Lead of only 29 in that riding, with only 2 of 22 polls remaining to report. So it's going to come down to the wire there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, the Conservatives leading or elected in 46 ridings now. The NDP right behind them at 45, and the Greens with 2. And the numbers between the Conservatives and NDP have been kind of flipping back and forth in the last little while. And don't forget, 47 is the number they need to form a majority. I see Richard waving and wants to jump in here.
Yeah, because you could sort of make the assumption after what Sonia Furstenau said, that those 2 almost maybe New Democratic seats. And that's one of the challenges. In a riding, Keith actually flagged this one because Columbia River Revelstoke is somewhere we haven't talked a lot about tonight. The Conservatives seem to consolidate here with Scott McGuinness, the BC Unite candidate. But look, it's just a 155 vote lead for the Conservatives. This has been an NDP seat recently. It was flipped, I believe, in 2017. Andrea Dunlop is the New Democrat here, and it's just 155 votes with 23 of 27 polls reporting. And the other really crucial thing and we'll crunch these numbers more later, but the independents polling in a few different ridings are making a big difference. So Vernon Lumby is the big case in point of that. Kevin Acton has pulled enough votes away from Dennis Giesbrecht here. This happened for Harwinder Sandhu last time as well. The Conservative at that time, when it was just a fringe party, they pulled away, and Harwinder Sandhu is leading here by 548 votes. It's also important to note, I don't think we've even mentioned it yet. There are Conservatives elected.
继续领先啊！
First Conservatives
我把2个孩子都弄睡觉了。
Since 1978. This is a party that came from nowhere to be in a position here where they could be forming government. It is quite remarkable. And I want to show you one last thing as we get on to Vancouver Island here. Again, the story of the independents. Adam Walker pulling away. Who does he pull from? It's unclear, but Stephanie Higginson seems on her way here for the New Democrats. That would be a big win for them in the riding of Ladysmith Oceanside.
谢谢大家给姜饼哥点赞啊！谢谢大家。
For the Conservatives, no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to be happy, even though some of them thought, you know, and right now we don't know what's going to happen. They could still be the government after all the votes are counted tonight. But as Richard said, no elected
还没有完全结束啊，
since 1978. That was a
但已经差不多了， 接近尾声了啊。
You have to go back to 1928 to when the last time they formed government, and they elected a couple MLAs in 1972. So this is
绿党联合 NDP 的话，那个牙医保险就要取消了啊。 免费医疗就要取消了。
Nervous excitement, I think, is the best way to describe it now. I'm here with Aisha Esty. She's the president of the Conservative Party of BC. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for your time. I wanted to ask you, when you woke up this morning, did you really think the race would be this tight?
终于采访 Conservative 的人。
It was going to be this tight. Very confident and optimistic, but I mean, we've just seen the polls. It's been neck and neck the whole way.
So yeah, we were kind of anticipating that this may be a long night, if not a long couple days, and it's looking that way right now.
We were chatting off air, and you mentioned a couple of surprises, perhaps. Which ones are those?
I mean, the island, we've been really looking forward to seeing how we're doing on the island. Richmond Center, that's been really interesting for us to see as well. I mean, yeah, Richmond versus the island, it's been interesting to see how those two regions have been playing out. But I mean, they're so close, it's hard for me to say what is a surprise now, because I don't know if things are going to go another way, but yeah, we're...
Now tell me, you became the president of the party only last year. What has changed? Like, what was
好，
your
现在又是
first day on the
46 比
job like
45了
versus
啊
now? Like, what
很
has
焦
changed
灼，
the
相
most?
当的焦灼。
I mean, when I got into this position, I was focused on making this party as efficient as possible to try to make growth as easy as possible. And, you know, we've taken it day by day, and we always hoped that we would be at this place, but, you know, we had United, old BC Liberal Party to contend with as well, so, you know, that only happened a couple months ago. So the campaign that we're running
牙医
today
保险是
is really different from
NDP
when we were expecting to run in
推选
January.
出来的啊，
Probably quadrupled
所以
in
如果
size
他们
from
失
what we
去
were
席位的
expecting.
话，他们可能
But we've been taking it day by
这
day.
个东西可能就会搁浅。
If you do end up forming government tonight, what's your first order of business?
Oh my gosh, you'd have to check with John on that one. I can't say, but there's a lot of work to be done. We really hope we have that honor. And I mean, we're going to get rid of that carbon tax and make things affordable for people immediately, as quickly as we can. So that'll be the first order of business, is how can we make life more affordable for people as fast as possible.
Carbon tax 啊，听到的人应该都会激动一下啊。他们要 axe the carbon tax 啊。
Yeah. So how does that work?
Well, if it's less than 100 vote difference, the chief electoral officer can order a recount, or there can be a judicial recount if the difference is less than 1/500th of all the ballots cast.
没有想到那么焦灼啊！我觉得 NDP 应该很早就会有赢的可能啊。
2017, but we're looking at 42 votes in Kelowna. 8 votes or less than that. The latest total was in Surrey Central, but that was a very close race as well. So there's likely going to be recounts in at least 2 ridings right now. So we may not actually be able to declare anything tonight. Who knows?
15 votes in Surrey City Centre, and I know that while we were talking, the chicklets flipped down at the bottom.
Yeah.
So, and right now there are 2 ridings, Surrey City Centre and Kelowna Centre, where it is under
Surrey 那里也是毒品泛滥啊，所以 Surrey Centre
Potentially a
也是
couple。 other ridings could fall in there. Surrey Guildford's at 121 in the last count. That may have changed since because
提出问题，前面我已经说了啊，提出问题没有解决的方案，比制造问题要来得好
As it
啊。
stands right now, before we bring in the strategy panel, the NDP leading or elected in 46 ridings, the Conservatives in 45. Greens have 2 ridings to their name.
So I think you could feel the anxiety at Conservative Party headquarters from the Aisha Esty. I wonder about the anxiety level at NDP headquarters, where CKNW's Jazz Johal is with our strategy panel.
Well, forget about the folks behind us. We're very nervous here as well, watching the numbers go up and down. There's lots of
今天是很接近啊，两个地方。
Hotel Pacifico podcast crew here. Let me go to you first, Jeff. Surrey is very interesting right now. I'm looking at ridings we didn't think were going to flip. Up here at this point, the Conservatives have a lead. It's still early yet. We haven't finalized this. What is going on in Surrey, do you think, that it just flipped this?
I'm not sure that I know exactly, but I would say that there's been a massive
对他不上去的话，你怎么知道他没有呢？
really struggled to keep up.
只是我们觉得这个解决这些所有的问题有难度啊。
Medical school, you name it. Then the Conservatives responded with a children's hospital that they proposed to build. Maybe they were answering the wrong question. Maybe there was other frustrations in the electorate that were really driving this. We were talking offline about crime and the issues there, the long debate over the police force at a time when, the community was reporting extortion and targeted killings that were brazen in daylight that are happening at a regular basis. We'll have to dig deeper into the Surrey situation. There are also some of the issues that a recall campaign launched against Rashna Singh over the question of Soji. Clearly, many issues beneath the surface that were driving opinion there in ways that was not forecast by some of the parties.
I think you hit on something. I mean, I think beyond just crime, there's issues of Soji. I also think even issues that are not provincial, like immigration. Surrey saw a lot of immigrants coming in, particularly students. That's a federal policy, not provincial. but I think they saw the implications and the effect on places like Surrey, and I think even this government, whether it's fair or not, is dealing with that issue as well with regards to the NDP. Let me go to you, Mike. The other issue here is you don't expect independents to get elected, but they are having an impact.
They're having a big impact, and the numbers right now 46-45, but Vernon Lumby, the NDP may win that by 500 or 600 votes. 4,000 votes for the independent, who was a federal.
最后估计也是很焦灼的状态赢下这个。我这里怎么又有广告了啊？不好意思啊。
The independent former BC United candidate got. So those kind of candidate decisions that happened.
今天是给大家转播大选夜啊 ，BC 大选啊。现在 NDP 是46-45继续领先，绿党还是有2票啊。
Armchair quarterbacking here, but it's it's in a game of inches. Boy, you sure got to get decisions right as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when it's this close. I keep looking at the numbers moving back and forth. Kate, what are you seeing? Because I think Surrey and Richmond fascinating. First of all, being an MLA from Richmond, but the Surrey numbers especially I find fascinating. It's like Surrey and Richmond, large immigrant populations, completely different news ecosystem, and politics sometimes in regards to what's driving this vote.
Yes, exactly. And I think you have to take that and couple that with the results we're seeing in North Vancouver and on the island, right? Because in those ridings we were all watching tonight, we actually saw that go more to the NDP. So
其实很焦灼的状态 ，Conservative 其实已经赢了呀。
versus Richmond and Surrey, and maybe ask some questions about the ethnic vote and what the.
Bob 说 Conservative 会不会和 Green 联合？应该不会啊，因为 Conservative 是不会支持那个 LGBTQ 那些东西的啊。
45 Conservative, 2 for the Greens. What does this say about natural resources, forestry, mining, and getting decisions made, regulations, taxation? I mean, I'd be worried if I'm a C-suiter right now going, what the heck is this?
Well, I think you're going to feel a lot of uncertainty, given this probably heading towards a situation where the NDP may need to govern with the Greens. Now, we haven't called the election yet, so we don't know how it's exactly going to fall down tonight. But it's what is this cocktail policy going to look like in this split parliament?
Yeah.
And the natural resource sector, natural gas in particular, I think there'd be a lot of hesitation about what increasing green influence in an NDP administration would look like.
And attracting that investment as well. So the repercussions, of course, Sophie, Chris, and Keith and Richard, not only tonight, but also on our business community and certainly attracting investment.
King 你好 ，King 你好
Back to you.
欢迎来到姜饼哥的频道
Thank you very much.
欢迎来看我们现在
We're talking about what
只差1票
what
啊
is the scenario of this is how it ends, and it becomes very difficult to govern for 4 years.
Oh, it'd be
very likely we'd be back doing this much sooner.
Yeah, it'd be very unstable. Even if you combine the 46 and the 2, someone's the speaker. It'd be a tougher. You wouldn't see a heavy legislative package because you'd want to minimize the number of votes to expose yourself. But again, just remember, 3 ridings are still very close. Surrey City Centre, 52 votes. Surrey Guildford, 112. Kelowna Centre, 47 votes. And Richard wants to jump in.
Yeah, because I want to show you those. But you're right, Keith. Like, people can't be sick. You can't miss votes. Like, it becomes very challenging to govern. This is the flip. So this is not why the NDP is now in the lead, is Wanda Fuka-Malahat. This is a battle of 2 parts of the riding. Souk largely strong for the NDP. Cobble Hill, parts. This is a strange riding because part of this was also.
Dogfly 说，投绿党的人如果有外星人参选的话，他们会。说得好。
That have been moving around, and that's in part why we have the NDP in the lead here. I'll show you this one of Surrey City Centre, just a 13-vote lead for Amna Shah over Zishan Walla.
City Centre 啊，只领先，
and this is another one that we've seen.
只领先13票。
Kelly Green leads by 647 votes. It has gone back and forth, but that lead
好，
at the
拜
last
登
poll was very good for Kelly Green.
拜登曲线出来了啊
Neighborhoods in that riding. So this is
Richmond
Stevenston solid for the NDP, and we knew in order to hold on, they need to hold on to at least 1 in Richmond, and that may be the one guys that they can hold on to.
Steve.
他可能刚来哈。
Right, thank you, Richard.
And Surrey City Centre and Kelowna Centre and. These are
我从去年就说了啊，我是保守派啊。
And Surrey Guildford that we're going to be keeping an eye on over the next little while because it's.
但我不是那种极端的保守派。
As I just mentioned before, we just a short time ago, we are likely to see at least a couple recounts. And again, we may not know.
这方面应该是对的啊。我的频道是希望房价能够跌，大家都能住得起房子。这不是自由派，保守派，但不是极端的保守派。 对，我不希望自己变成，你如果太右的话，你会特别难活下去啊。呀，我的这个怎么了？我的这个怎么了？哎呀，怎么把我儿子照片给露出来了？对啊，我觉得包包挺有趣的。NDP 的快乐屋让房价下跌啊 ，NDP 的快乐那个。对的啊，人对啊，如果环境越来越差的话，大家只能用脚投票了，房子也买不起，环境越来越差，治安越来越差，你留下来干嘛呢？对吧？环境好，那个我说那个气候好，也不是最关键的。叙利亚房价低，叙利亚治安太差了啊！这个还是命是最重要的啊，有命了之后才想要住得好一点啊。他现在这个是什么了？怎么停住了？我看一下啊，还是46-45，好像那个 Surrey Center 的那个挺重要的啊，不知道唱票唱了多少了。这里不能用导弹打房价，哎，其实有一个方法挺好的，上海的房价打下来和那个那个就是那个鸳鸯火锅那个 lockdown 啊，作用挺大的啊，大家都走了啊，房子都抛出来啊。叙利亚房价并不低啊，这个不知道，我想打仗了总是会低的啊。昆特斯说支持 NDP 在自己选上的选区建快乐屋，求人得人，大家开心。
We've got some ridings, one in particular, 8 votes separate the NDP candidate, Amna Shah in Surrey City Centre, from the Conservative candidate there. That's one of a handful of ridings we're keeping an eye on where it's very, very tight.
So one of those 46 of NDP, as you mentioned, is Surrey City Centre, just 8-point lead. One of those Conservatives there is in Columbia Centre, which is
钟晓说，加拿大如果以后底特律化啊，房价会降的啊，肯定的。Chilliwack 啊 ，Calais Lake 啊 ，Conservative。
returning back to, I guess, their roots.
Yes. So Leah Warbus is a daughter of former Lieutenant Governor Stephen Point, former chief of the Stolo.
She got 55% of the vote in Chilliwack.
And Heather Moss, again, this is sort of going back.
Chilliwack 那些地方全部都是投 Conservative， 这都是受那些毒品啊，那些看不惯毒品那些东西。Mission 啊 ，Conservative 已经 elected 了。
Favorable riding boundary changes there. It did not help Pam Alexis enough. They won for the very first time, and now it's going back to traditional.
And these were ridings Langley Walnut Grove, Misty Van Pop.
Langley Walnut Grove 49-44。
That they would need to win.
And this one as well. Jody Tour now beating Andrew Mercier, who won again.
今天很焦灼是肯定的啊，结果赢个1-2票啊，2-3票可能，最后还没有结束啊。Willowbrook。
And so far, both are short.
It's not exactly as the NDP would have hoped the night would go. They're in a weak position right now, to put it lightly.
房子是供求关系啊，钟晓说，房子是供求关系，你想要便宜，前提就是大家不想买了。
2017 and in 2020. He served as special advisor this time around. Bob, thanks for joining us. First of all, I want to ask you, are you having any deja vu to 2017 tonight?
Well, the results are very similar to 2017. Different campaign, but yeah, it's very similar. So the thing I think is more work to be done. There's a lot.
加拿大咖喱化啊，以后海鲜酒楼都变成 tandoori chicken.
It'll be a while before we find out what's going on. So a lot of work to do still.
Let's talk about this campaign. It was one like none other. How difficult is it to pivot so quickly for any party, as we saw in August?
列治文只有市长数的 Stevenson 区是 NDP 选上的，还没有结束呢，那里还没有结束啊。但是好像那个拜登曲线上来挺多的。
For ourselves, I think we knew what we had to do. We had to run a campaign where we talked to the voters, and we talked to them about health care, we talked to them about housing, we talked to them about affordability. Those were things that mattered to them, and that's what we did. So we were very happy with our campaign. We thought we ran a good campaign, and David Eby was an amazing candidate going out there and connecting with the voters. We knew with the Conservatives, we didn't really know.
没问题的啊，谁当选，大家日子还得过下去的啊，不用那么纠结。
When the other party just folded, the official opposition just folded, so that was odd. But we went into the campaign knowing we had to talk to the voters about the issues they cared about, and we felt we did that.
One last question quickly. Some of these races are so close. Some ridings are in single digits. What does it tell you?
It tells me that the voters out there were,
咖喱话比伊斯兰话好啊。
You know, and right now a lot of people out there are hurting. You know, we came out of the pandemic, and when we came out of the pandemic, inflation came in, services were not as good as they were before for various reasons. And the voters
其实今天这个比分已经算赢了啊。NDP 本来是在 BC 是大比分领先的啊，现在已经很焦灼了，已经算赢了啊。不用太纠结这几分啊，这次选上或者是没有选上，结果都不是最关键的啊。不是说选上了，Conservative 执行一套什么政策，马上房价就下跌，所有东西都改变啊，一切都改变，还会遇到很多阻力的。
Let's take a look again as the NDP are holding on to 46 right now, the Conservatives with 45, and the Greens with 2. Let's look at where they're picking up seats and losing seats. Of course, the Conservatives come into this picking up a lot of seats, but as you've said a while ago, the story is
gain and lost.
Yeah, and they're right now they're not losing.
按照现在的方式结束的话 ，Conservative 增加了37个席位 ，NDP 减掉了9个席位，对吧？这就是胜利啊。Conservative 这是算胜利了，其实不用去想最后到底是胜几分还是输几分。宝宝，宝宝，处方要到手了，牙还没到手啊！大家都拿 Bob 来开玩笑啊，没问题的。大家姜饼哥的频道不是说只有右派的人或者偏右的人才能进来啊，大家都可以在这里各抒己见，大家自己都有自己的想法，没问题啊。我们是一个freedom speech 的地方啊，只要不做人身攻击都没有问题啊。如果人身攻击的话，姜饼哥会把留言给删掉啊。大家打趣啊什么的些啊，开玩笑都没有问题的。
We are focused in where the NDP is hoping to hold on to is in part of John Horgan's old riding, the Souk part of it. The other part of that riding was a green riding.
他那个 Stevenson 选区还没有结束啊，就现在是有个拜登曲线把那个之前的那个数据给之前一直领先的，现在给落后了啊 ，Stevenson。啊，我觉得最后应该是就差个几票吧，可能48比42、47比43那些，差个几票。
And so would be this one. But again, you've mentioned it again and again tonight, how close Surrey City Centre is. Amna Shaw's lead's a little bit bigger now, 34 votes.
City Centre 啊，赢了34票啊，几票，几十票啊。
In essence, tied for the entirety of the night. As every poll comes in, it starts indicating that. And then you talked about the Conservative gains. You guys eloquently mentioned many of those into the Fraser Valley. It goes further than that, though, right? It goes into Surrey and works their way into some of these ridings. And I want to focus in on somewhere incumbents could fall here. Ginny Sims losing by 355 votes to Brian Tepper in Surrey Panorama. We'll focus on this riding. Surrey North, Roshna Singh, an incumbent, was the Minister of Education.
Surrey 现在是好多人都选 conservative 了啊。
There, Surrey Serpentine, Linda Hepner leads by just 467 votes.
PR 没得投票啊，必须得Canadian。
And the NDP with Baltaj Dillon unable to make those gains. This is another one that could be an incumbent losing. Gary Begg trailing by just 106 votes to Hanvir Radhana. 17 out of 19 polls reporting. And the last one, and this has been, again, I've mentioned this riding, I think more.
Talk Fresh 说，NDP 上台后没有兑现承诺，鲍勃的牙又没了，大家开玩笑啊。Stevenston 选区现在是 NDP 啊。对，现在如果两党很焦灼的话，结果会对那个叫什么？对 NDP 会有限制啊。其实已经很那个了，现在已经 conservative 现在已经很焦灼了，45啊。
Points that were driving voters to the polls and perhaps thinking shame.
房价贵的地方，大麻多的地方，彩虹多的地方，都是。其实大家可以这么想啊，就是这些橘红色的地方，以后的房价可能会下跌啊，因为快乐屋多了，彩虹多了。可能有些人就会选择离开啊。有些人选的时候，问买哪里房子的时候，你可以看这个地图嘛，对吧？选 NDP 的地方就不用去了，不用硬着头皮过去了。
Because you had commitments, or you had the NDP running off the record of the pro-density, transit-oriented development, density around transit stations, and then you had eventually the Conservatives coming out and saying, we're largely going to keep that intact. We're going to change some of the things around the smaller scale density of the 4 units per lot kind of stuff. But there's a lot of
这个频道人除了鲍勃，大部分已经领不到任何政府福利了。我估计也是啊，大家都是中产嘛，领到也是很少的一部分啊。
So you're not seeing the types of impacts hitting the electorate yet, where typically in jurisdictions like in New Zealand or in some cities.
他说的是福利金啊，看病不是福利啊。
You see rents and housing prices sort of stagnate, and income's allowed to catch up over time, but they didn't have enough runway to really get there.
那读书也是福利啊，你不是交那个地税的嘛，对吧？免费看病也是 MDP 推上去的啊。我们免费看病 ，Bob 去看一下emergency 啊，要等多久啊？免费看病。Bob 大家都针对你啊，洗牙洗得起飞了，飞起来了，太有趣了。还没有结束吗？对的，免费有免费的问题啊。现在免费，其实我之前在视频里也经常讲，免费的医疗其实也有它很多的问题。
And so they really went in on this density. It brought them into conflict with a lot of mayors and councillors.
没有西瓜的，只能拿点芝麻嘛，对吧？所以有发芝麻的地方，就会很多想要芝麻的人啊。所以对很多加拿大的人去不是西雅图，去那个西雅图那里，就第一个 Costco 那个第一个城市那里有一个cancer center 啊，和我们这里 BC 的 cancer center 是连通的啊，所以很多有在这里治疗的人，他们会去跑到那里去治疗，啊，会转去那里治疗的，确实你说的没错啊。很多加拿大有钱人都到美国去看病了。
what's going to happen on housing. But if you look at the data, Central 1 between January 2023 to 2024, new housing starts are down. So when the public doesn't see new housing come up, to Helsam's point, they're not going to believe the numbers that we can put up. And we know the NDP hasn't hit the numbers that they promised to hit moving forward. But I think it's a big thing.
反正 NDP 执政了这些年 ，Vancouver、BC 的房价没有下跌啊，所以他继续执政的话，应该对房价下跌没有帮助。这是姜饼哥认为的啊。
Interesting, and I wanted to
应该快结束了吧？我觉得9点50分了。
So much, and it affects healthcare incredibly. Give us your perspective as a family physician, why this housing problem that we're seeing right now is so important when it comes to also fixing healthcare.
I mean, certainly housing is a problem for our patients. I mean, every physician can talk about an unhoused patient and their multitude of medical concerns. But when you're looking at fixing healthcare, they can attract all the best and the brightest healthcare workers to the province. But if these healthcare workers come here and they can't afford to stay here, they can't afford to live the life that they want to lead, and they can't afford to raise their children here, people are going to leave. And we already know that 40% of doctors in the next 5 years are going to be retiring or cutting their hours down. We can't afford to lose more people, and therefore that needs to be targeted.
太多
solution that's looking at solving the healthcare crisis.
All right. It is still
healthcare crisis 我觉得挺难解决的啊。
Still standing by, but we're going to throw back to Chris and Sophie with hopefully some more results. Can we find out where this is going?
哦，那你就早点休息吧，看困了。其实我也很困了。
Well, we'll show you some of the battle.
Lawrence 是不是要赢了 ？Maple Ridge East 啊，领先300票。
So far, the Conservatives have the lead with Lawrence Mock over the incumbent Bob Deeth. And
Richmond Centre
margins back in 2020. This is not necessarily a surprise. This was the weakest of the NDP seats in Richmond, and Han Chan now the leader there.
These are seats that the Conservatives would be picking up. These are
Richmond, Queensborough.
Make this such a close race. This one, Richmond, Queensborough, Arjaz Johal, very familiar with this one. The Conservatives winning this one. Aman Singh was in tight races the last 2 elections and finally defeated.
And this remains a tight race in Coquitlam-Burke Mountain. Again, just a 274 lead there for Jody Wickens, who actually won the riding in a by-election a number of years ago, but that is still very close out there as well. And North Van Seymour, bit of a landmark win here. This is a repeat win for Susie Chan for the NDP, winning for the first time in 2020. This may be
谢谢中小给大家带来的信息啊。
has changed over the years and now favors the NDP.
And let's check in with Richard Zussman for how that's playing out on the map. Richard.
Yeah, I thought Sonia was the one that was supposed to bring the crystal ball to this thing, right? So we could tell what was going to happen, but I guess she forgot it. So we're just going to have to wait till the results come in. Wanda Fuka-Malahad is one of those places we're still waiting for.
这里差46票啊。
Jeunesse leads here, and I want to show you those 2 green ridings just to give them a bit of focus. Rob Botterill leading by 1,216 votes over Sarah Riddell, the New Democrat in Saanich North, and the Islands, and Jeremy Valeriot leading by 609 votes in West Vancouver Sea to Sky. So not done yet, but looking very good.
Sea to Sky 应该 Conservative 会拿下啊。
I've been coughing, so I have a puffer.
Okay. I'm sorry, Sophie. That's on me.
She needs to be reminded to take it, though. Is the only.
Yes. Okay, I won't do it on air.
That's fine.
Yes. So the Greens, we saw Sonia Furstenau speaking just a little while ago.
James 就说加拿大税率这么高，看比免费是应该对啊，收的税都是必须得，但其实医院里面其实也有些浪费的啊。
Yeah, Sophie, some mixed emotions here tonight. The good news, 2 seats in the legislature for the BC Greens, which means they will maintain that official party status, with Jeremy Valeriot winning in West Vancouver Sea to Sky and Rob Botterill in Saanich Islands and the North. But the bad news, BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau lost her seat in Victoria Beacon Hill to NDP incumbent Grace Lohr. You saw her a little while ago speaking to the supporters here tonight. A lot of emotion, also a lot of unknowns. So for that, I want to bring in Adam Olson.
本来比牙都不好嘛，所以支持 NDP 还要洗牙。
Now, what does this mean for the Green Party leadership going forward? Will Sonia maybe consider seeking a seat elsewhere?
look, I'm not going to speculate.
Queen 大师说，谁让你去的人投给绿党啊？是因为地震啊？祈祷一下哈。
The BC Green Party and the movement, and very very tight election results.
还没有结束呢，佳木斯还没有结束。不管谁胜，这个比分已经很接近了啊。
Are indeed green by the end of the night, and then take it day by day over the coming days.
Now, this is very deja vu, back to 2017. In terms of balance of power, will the Greens be looking to strike a deal going forward?
I think it's still early days. We have to have a conversation with those two new Greens. Once they're declared victorious, then they will have the job of
working with 还有共产党，好像还有一个什么地方有个共产党，我今天看那个新闻里说的啊，还有个党代表啊。Surrey South 啊，也赢了啊。
We've experienced this before. We have very much seen what it's like to be working with colleagues across the way from us, and the BC Greens have always been committed to a functional government, and so we'll be working towards that, and we'll see how that looks at the end of the night.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam. Appreciate you joining us, and we will be hearing from the new candidates that have been elected tonight shortly. And celebration is still underway for the wins here tonight.
对啊。
Well, they made breakthroughs.
联合绿党啊 ，NDP 和绿党其实一起的啊，他们都支持这些相同的东西啊，碳税啊那些东西。Bob 今天肯定看到最后啊，大家该睡觉的睡觉吧。我也再播一会儿吧，现在温哥华10点啊，我这都播了，肚子都饿了。
But the conservative vote, the popular vote, is less than 10%. It's been dropping the last few elections, and they really haven't gone to a detailed look here. But they finished with approaching 30% of the vote in 2020 in a number of ridings. Doesn't look like they finished that strong in the places they finished much stronger in 2020 and 2017. So again, not a good night for the Greens, but it might turn out being a better night when you look at the fact that they hold the balance of power as it stands now.
But they are efficient with that, whatever percentage it is.
That is so true. Conservatives have done well in some of the ridings they needed to. Surrey Serpentine River is one of them. Linda Hepner predicted elected there.
他还没有结束啊，还没有结束，他这只是领先啊。结果什么样都有机会的啊。
Yeah, Chris, Linda Hepner, of course, former mayor of Surrey, and now Global BC has declared her elected. So heading to Victoria, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
What was the number one issue you heard at the doorstep?
已经结束了吗？我再看看。看得云里雾里啊。
Chaos, mental health, addiction on the streets.
I'm curious, did the policing issue in Surrey ever come up on the doorstep?
You know what? Not once.
Kidding.
Not once. Which was, as a matter of fact, a big surprise to me. Didn't come up once.
Now, let's talk about the Brent Chapman comments. Do you figure, did that hurt you at all? I mean, you've
这是最终结果吗？还是
Tell me about that.
还有哪里还在选啊？
You know, they were really bad comments, and I didn't hear it at the doorsteps. And I think that leaving it in the hands of the electorate was probably the only thing you could say at that point in time.
When you do get to Victoria, what's your first order of business?
Well, let's just watch the rest of the night and see if we get to govern or we get to critique government. Either way, I intend on really representing.
感谢那么多人还在继续观看啊，大家都对这个结果很感兴趣。
Enough attention on Surrey in this election. I mean, the leaders made a lot of stops there, but did it get the coverage you wanted?
I think it got lots of coverage. I think for the first time, it got recognized as, hey, we're 10 seats out of 90. We're 10% of the electorate. And that made a big difference.
这 Vernon 还没有结束啊 ，Vernon。
Rightly so, in my opinion.
Linda Hepner, thank you so much for your time, and again, congratulations. All right, back to the desk.
All right, Jordan, thanks very much, and former Mayor Linda Hepner as well.
She didn't seem very happy about Brent Chapman's.
No, well, I don't don't blame her, but it appears that Brent Chapman, you know, the ridings the NDP thought was going to have an impact was 3 ridings where there's a large Muslim community. That's in the Surrey Panorama, Surrey Cloverdale, and Surrey Serpentine. And right now, we haven't declared everyone elected, but Eleanor Sturkle has a healthy lead in Surrey Cloverdale. And Linda Hepburn has been declared the winner in Surrey Serpentine, and Ginny Sims appears to have lost, or appears to be losing in Surrey Panorama. So it doesn't seem to have the impact. And frankly, Brent Chapman, I don't know if we've declared him elected yet, but he has a very big lead in Surrey South.
All right, well, still too close to call. 46 for the NDP, 45 for the Conservatives, 2 for the Greens.
We'll be right back with more on Decision BC. Stick around.
今天一个就是这么焦灼的结果了。我去看看小红书上怎么说。他还没有结束啊，还没有结束。这还没有结束啊，还没有结束。Surrey Center 有人投共产党吗？其实很简单，我看那个 Richmond Stevenson 呢，独立搅屎棍分走了2000票 ，NDP 成功以1000票领先。其实大家可以把那个欢乐屋都建到 Richmond Stevenson 那里啊。Brook Mountain 还差一点啊，50.7比49.3啊，差200多票啊。
Here we are, Decision BC. Thanks very much for joining us on Global BC in the Okanagan on CKNW and on those digital platforms. The polls leading into Election Day showed this at almost a dead heat, maybe a slight edge to the NDP. And look at the numbers on the bottom of your screen. That's exactly what we've got tonight.
Yeah, we've got about 5 ridings where the lead, the gap is very, very small. In Wandafuka Malahat, it's just 44 votes separating the NDP and Conservatives, and in Surrey City Centre, it's just 32 votes right now. And we are taking a look at some of the key ridings where NDP cabinet ministers have been defeated. So here in Abbotsford Mission, the Conservatives winning this riding over Pam Alexis of the NDP.
Langley Willowbrook, the incumbent Andrew Mercier for the NDP, lost to Jody Tour, the Conservative candidate there, by a sizable lead, almost 1,000 votes.
In Chilliwack North, Dan Coulter also falling, the NDP losing that riding to the Conservatives, and Heather Moss.
And Bulkley Valley Stikine, Nathan Cullen, the incumbent there, well loved in that riding, but not enough tonight. Sharon Hartwell, the Conservative candidate, wins Bulkley Valley Stikine.
Still very close, though, and as we mentioned, lots of ridings still too close to call, and that's why we can't call the election yet, because you need to have 47 ridings in order to form a majority, 48 really, so obviously neither party is there yet. Keith and Richard are looking at some of the really, really tight races right now.
Yeah, I brought Keith back here, but I have a message for him as well, right? Last time we saw him here, so I'm going to say this. Do not touch, okay, Keith? So we're just going to put that right there as a reminder for you. Do not touch the board, okay? but you and I, we could take that down now. Do not touch, okay, Keith? Keith, don't touch the board. We're going to focus in on these ridings because there are so many that are so close, and I want to start down here on Vancouver Island. Wanda Fuka-Malahad has won by 44 votes. It is amazing because last time around, Keith, John Horgan had Souk. The other part was part of Sonia's riding, Sonia Furstenau's. It is amazing to me how close this is here. What's the sense you're getting?
I thought, if anything, the Greens would be the biggest threat here to the NDP. No one was talking about this riding. It was just assumed it was if John Horgan was going to save NDP. 44 votes. This is going to go to a recount if that margin remains the same.
Yeah, and Surrey is obviously the place where we are focusing in heavily, and those ridings are still very, very close. So Surrey City Centre, Amna Shah leading by 36 votes. What's the sense you're getting here? We look at the trend lines. It has been back and forth, razor close. What is the sense you're getting about what's happening, not just in Surrey Centre, but throughout this region in Surrey, where we're seeing substantial pickups from the Conservatives? Well-known incumbents are poised to lose here, including Ginny Sims, Mike Starchuk, Gary Begg. Like, what's the sense you're getting for Surrey?
I think our strategist panel, I think Jeff Meigs made a very good point early on, or just recently, about the phenomenal population growth in Surrey and all the pressures that puts on the services, the public services. You've got hospital issues in Surrey. You've just got the crowded streets, the expanded need for government services. So I think there's an electorate here that clearly was unhappy with the status quo and the current government. It's interesting though, it's not the NDP still sort of controls some of the ridings here, but if the Conservatives can flip a couple more ridings, they could be in that 47-seat territory.
Yeah.
They're not out of it yet.
And that's how close they are here. And, you mentioned some of those. Surrey-Guildford is one of those. Gary Begg down just 101. But it's the ones where I think you're watching the NDP are leading. They could flip. I want to show one more where the Conservatives are leading, where the New Democrats still believe they have a chance here, and that's in Kelowna Centre, just 142 votes. And the last thing I want to mention as well. So we've stalled out here with the numbers. I want to mention this as best I can from Elections BC. So in a lot of screens, you will see 2 polls reporting remaining. So 20 out of 22. The reason we're stalled out is this. One of those 2 polls remaining is the final poll that is collected. They need to watch this very closely because once that gets sent in essence, it ends the count for the riding tonight. The other poll are those polls, those votes that were done before the advanced polling, those written in votes. They may have an influence in places like this where it's just 142 votes, but that's why we haven't seen things change. We haven't received a lot new numbers. Those 2, one we will not get tonight, the other we will, and the electoral officers in every riding are taking their time on that, and some of them aren't ready yet to produce those results.
Pardon me. Sorry. I'm sorry. Cough again.
You're okay.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I just, they installed a new cough switch. I forgot it was there.
It's all good. We want to check in at NDP headquarters now. Sarah McDonald is down there with MLA George Heyman, who has had obviously a high-profile role in the government. And let's hear what he has to say about what's transpiring tonight. The NDP holding the slimmest of margins here in this election. Sarah?
Yeah, we have a very familiar face here to so many British Columbians, one we actually won't be seeing so much of going forward. George Heyman, of course, longtime MLA for Vancouver Fairview. He has decided not to run in this election. You have been an MLA since 2013. We were saying off air, that's more than a decade of your life. How is it feeling tonight not being on the ballot amid all this excitement?
Well, it's feeling odd not being on the ballot, but it's actually feeling a lot like 2017, so it's not unfamiliar. It's certainly a nail-biter tonight.
That was going to be my next question if you were having deja vu to 2017, so thank you for answering it. It is timely that we are talking to you tonight as we see this atmospheric river that is hammering the province. You, of course, were a longtime environment minister. I know you're passionate about the issue of climate change. What do we need to see going forward? Whichever party forms government tonight, whoever we see as premier leading the province for the next 4 years, what needs to happen in terms of the climate crisis in this province, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, this has been an election where people are struggling, they're frustrated, they're having a hard time with the cost of living, with housing and a number of other things. So that has been top of mind for people, but that does not mean that their concern about climate has gone away, whether it is extreme heat, whether it's the potential for flooding that people are worried about tonight, whether it's forest fires. Climate change is real, and frankly, I think it's outrageous
that there's a party in contention for government that is questioning the science of climate change when British Columbians have been feeling the impact for years. So it's really important for whoever forms the next government to take climate change seriously. And the NDP has a solid plan on climate change. It's been recognized as the best plan in Canada. We also created a ministry to help communities be more resilient to the impacts of climate change. That's Bo and Ma's ministry. So the NDP has taken this seriously and will continue to take action, and it's critically important to British Columbians, not just to deal with the things they struggle with every day. Those are critically important, but to also take the long view and set people up for a more secure future.
Quickly, Mr. Heyman, what does it say to you that we're seeing all this blue tonight? On that note of the climate, what do you think about the climate and politics in this province right now?
还有43位守在屏幕前面啊，还在看啊。
having a hard time and they're taking it out on incumbent governments. We're still waiting to see a final result here, but we're looking at a Conservative Party filled with people with no experience and a lot of crazy ideas. That's dangerous.
George Heyman, longtime MLA for Vancouver Fair.
其实46比45 ，Conservative 其实已经赢了，我觉得已经赢了啊。RQ 精神也好，什么也好，已经算赢了。
Not mincing any words was Mr. Heyman there.
这个已经死了。
Climate and the Conservative Party. We appreciate his time.
是我这个耳机，这个麦克风已经死了，还有一个，你们可以听见吗？你们可以听见吗？那我如果大家都想睡觉了，那我就待会儿就关了吧。明天我们在，已经可以算是赢了。大家也等到了很多选保守党的选票啊，把保守党的不管是怎么样啊，已经现在可以看到是整个 BC 的地图上大多数都是蓝色啊，当然有些地方是一大片没人的地方啊。 45比46啊，确实不错。我们就到此为止。明天早上起来可能有个新的 surprise， 好吧？大家来，我给大家打个招呼吧。我都快睡着了。 谢谢大家的点赞，谢谢大家守候在屏幕前面啊！大家一起很关心BC 的大选啊，这也影响到我们下一代啊孩子的未来，一些毒品啊，一些那些东西啊，确实我们应该大家作为父母啊，作为家长应该好好的去守候自己的孩子啊。房价其实也不是最关键的啊，这些搞来搞去那些。 毒品啊，那些彩虹啊，那些东西啊，精神上面层面上面那种打击确实很大啊。好了，明天我们看结果吧。好，大家记得继续关注姜饼哥，给姜饼哥多多点赞。没有订阅的朋友，大家给姜饼哥订阅一下，好吗？拜拜。姜饼哥祝大家 have a good night， 拜拜。